Chapter 22:13. The greedy wolf king stared at Su Yu, his mind buzzing. He stammered, "Are you from the Pirate Alliance?" Su Yu smiled without saying a word. Looking at Su Yu's smile, the greedy wolf king's heart felt as if it had fallen into an ice cellar. At the same time, many of the unexplainable questions in the past suddenly became clear. Why did such a talented and intelligent heaven's favorite suddenly appear in the second most powerful family? Why did he coincidentally appear at the observatory and defeat the pirate vice-captain? How did he know the location of the pirates' newest lair and lead everyone to plunder it? Because he was a member of the Pirate Alliance. Everything she had done had only one goal, and that was to get close to him. A trace of self-deprecation flashed across the corners of Greedy Wolf King's mouth. "I admit defeat." He was thoroughly convinced by such an exquisite setup. "However, I would like to know, how will you deal with this bitch?" The Greedy Wolf King had already accepted his fate after falling into the hands of the Pirate Alliance. The one who was most unwilling to accept this was Snow Dream Flying Rain, who had caused him to end up like this. Without her betrayal, how could he, who possessed the karmic luck pearl, end up in such a helpless state? Su Yu calmly said, "I will end up the same as you." Then I'm relieved." The Greedy Wolf King's eyes were filled with hatred. As a man, if he fell into the hands of the Pirate Alliance, he would only suffer a little. Sooner or later, the pirates would return him as a hostage. However, this woman was a peerless fairy whose name shook the 7 absolute civilizations. It went without saying what would happen to her if she fell into the hands of the pirates. At the very least, he would be violated by pirates who had no moral bottom line. Thinking of his fate, Greedy Wolf King felt the anger in his heart subside a little. "Fine, follow me." The small Kylan appeared on Su Yu's shoulder, and it spat out a mouthful of void power, which engulfed both of them. The isolation of the void completely blocked their auras and even their connection with the outside world. It would not be easy for the people guarding them to track them. Almost at the same time, the female Dowlord, who was guarding the Greedy Wolf King, sensed that her connection with the Greedy Wolf King had been cut off. "Something's wrong." The female Taoist master's expression darkened, and she immediately teleported into the room. Other than the remaining ice fragments on the ground, there was no trace of the Greedy Wolf King and the Snow Dream Flying Rain. Who did it? The female Daelord's heart sank when she realized that there was no aura to track. She immediately notified Emperor Pajuan. Emperor Vanquisher remained calm. The Greedy Wolf King had been kidnapped more than once or twice, but every time there was luck in the dark, and he would always be able to avoid danger. Now that he was suddenly kidnapped, he believed that the Greedy Wolf King had sealed his aura. "Greed should be fine, but we can't be careless. Activate the formation and seal off the border of the second peerless family. Strictly prevent anyone from entering or leaving for a month." Suddenly, a bronze lion as tall as a human emerged from the ground at the 8 borders of the second peerless family. The lion faced the sky and spat out a large expanse of dark green light. From 8 directions, it completely enveloped the second peerless clan, forming a dark green bowl-shaped seal. This seal was extremely powerful. Even a Tao master would need to spend a long time to break through a single point of the formation. Such a huge commotion would definitely attract the attention of the powerhouses of the second peerless family. However, 10 days had passed. It was as if the Greedy Wolf King had vanished from the face of the earth. He did not return as Pajuan Emperor had expected. Only now did Emperor Defeating Army realize that something had happened to Greedy Wolf King. "Did you find out anything about that Wen Shang?" Emperor Defeating Armies' face sank as he asked. In front of him stood 9 Tao masters who were on standby. The beautiful woman shook her head slightly and said, "His face has always been concealed, so there is no way to find out." The female Tao master, who was in charge of protecting the Greedy Wolf King, felt ashamed and said, "I went to the oasis where Wen Shang is to investigate. In the end, there was no such person." For a time, the air in the hall seemed to have frozen, and it was suffocating. Everyone could feel the violent killing intent hidden within Emperor-defeating armies. The abduction of the greedy Wolf King had touched Emperor-defeating armies' reverse scale. Mo Yuan, do you have anything to report? Emperor-defeating armies suddenly realized that Dao Master Mo Yuan was stroking his chin with a contemplative expression. Dao Master Mo Yuan frowned and said, Patriarch, when Wenshang first arrived, what kind of human demon did he kill? Can I see its image? Seeing that Dao Master Mo Yuan seemed to have some clues, Emperor-defeating armies immediately summoned the white-robed Sword God and Morning Flower Lady. The two of them had seen it with their own eyes. Under Emperor-defeating armies' command, the two of them drew the image of the human demon. After that, Dao Master Mo Yuan began to ponder. Mo Yuan, speak your mind, Emperor-defeating armies said. Dao Master Mo Yuan thought for a while and said, Patriarch, I have an unrealistic thought. Speak. Perhaps the one who abducted the greedy Wolf King wasn't some pirate, but the number one peerless family. Hearing this, the already tense atmosphere in the hall tensed up again. Emperor-defeating armies' expression was solemn. Why do you say that? If it really was done by the number one peerless family, then it would involve a war between the aristocratic families. It was no small matter. I once saw this demon in the hands of a junior from the number one peerless family, young noble Wu Chun. Back then, he summoned this human demon and neutralized my domain attack, which allowed him to escape back to the number one peerless family. I suspect that Wenshang, who killed the human demon, is actually young noble Wu Chun. Before Emperor-defeating armies realized anything, the beautiful woman in the palace gown had already exclaimed, Young noble Wu Chun? It's him? Emperor-defeating armies' eyes flashed when he heard her surprise. Dao Master Celestial Flower, you know this person? She didn't just know him. She had planned for many years at Broken Sky Mountain, and just as she was about to succeed, her plan was ruined by this person. Therefore, she told him everything that had happened at Broken Sky Mountain. After that, she said, Family Master, this person is extremely cunning, and his behavior is very similar to Wenshang's. It is very likely that young noble Wu Chun is Wenshang. After hearing this, Emperor-defeating armies' face twitched with uncontrollable anger. Even he had been deceived. Someone, send a message to the number one peerless family, and demand an explanation from them. Emperor-defeating armies said. At the same time, mobilize all forces, and dig 3 feet into the ground. Find Wenshang for me. As soon as the family master gave the order, the entire aristocratic family started operating in an orderly manner. From the stellar sky city to a small mortal village, they were conducting a large-scale search for any suspicious individuals. Regardless of the influence, regardless of whether it was a commoner, the places where they lived were searched thoroughly. For a moment, the people were filled with grievances, and the normal life and work of the entire aristocratic family was interrupted. The aristocratic families were in a deep panic. In a certain oasis, while the outside world was in a state of chaos, Su Yu was leisurely sipping tea and reading a book in a coffin shop. Su Rushu, you can't escape. Tanlang was sitting opposite him. His body was still frozen, and he couldn't move at all. His whole body was still enveloped by the small Kylan's nothingness, so his aura couldn't leak out. He already knew Su Yu's real identity. He was the Sea Wolves Pirates' deputy leader, Su Rushu. Facing his angry eyes, Su Yu's expression didn't change, and he continued reading the incomplete text in front of him. It was Xue Mengfeiyu's heaven-devouring 18-character scripture. Back then, he had only read it roughly, and didn't read it carefully. Now that he had the leisure to read it carefully, he decided to read it carefully. Xue Mengfeiyu looked at the incomplete text, then at Su Yu. She was calm, and she took the initiative to pour Su Yu a cup of tea. She said softly, I didn't recognize you, and I offended you. I hope you can forgive me. She was very humble. There was only one man in the world whom she had treated in this way. That was Suyu. Surushu was the second. You didn't offend me, Suyu said calmly. She hadn't offended him, and she only wanted to harm him. To be honest, if she hadn't had any inappropriate thoughts about Suyu, he wouldn't have bothered to capture her. It was a pity that the what-ifs in this world only existed in the past. Xue Mengfeiyu's eyes were filled with joy, but before she could show it, she heard Suyu say calmly, however, "You are the heir of the 6th peerless family. If I bring you back, I should be able to exchange you for many benefits." Xue Mengfeiyu's pretty face turned slightly pale. She knew very well what would happen if she really fell into the hands of the Pirate Alliance. "Mr. Su, if you want benefits, why don't you return me to the 6th peerless family? That would be more beneficial to you, wouldn't it?" Xue Mengfeiyu's pretty eyes flickered. Suyu could use her as a hostage to extort money from the 6th peerless family, and everything he got would belong to him. However, if he handed her over to the Pirate Alliance, it would be great if he could reward Suyu with 10% of the extorted items. Suyu looked at her and smiled softly. "Now that you've fallen into my hands, you don't have to play tricks anymore. You can't afford what I want." "Not even the heaven-devouring 18-character scripture?" Xue Mengfeiyu said, biting her red lips. Suyu shook the remnant of the scripture, then shook his head and laughed. "I think you should remind your brother Jingyun that this scripture ends here. If he continues to cultivate it, the consequences will be dire." His eyes shone with a mysterious light. Xue Mengfeiyu was silent, but she did not think much of it. The heaven-devouring 18-character scripture was the cultivation technique cultivated by the Tiani Great Emperor. It was by relying on this scripture that he could create the Tiani civilization and become a great emperor. Suyu was arrogant enough to say that this scripture had serious drawbacks? The ignorant were truly fearless. At that moment, Wang San walked over and said, "Deputy Leader Su, everything is ready." Suyu put down the remnant scripture and nodded slightly. "Thank you for your hard work these days." He took out a space storage device, which was filled with the treasures that he had plundered from Xie Xiaoye's treasury. "Take it." Suyu threw it to him and said, "Also, change your identity and location. The greedy Wolf King would be returned as a hostage sooner or later. By then, Wang San would definitely be exposed." "Thank you, Deputy Leader Su. I know what to do." Wang San was overjoyed. Suyu stood up and led the greedy Wolf King and Xue Mengfeiyu to the wasteland outside the city. The space there cracked open, and a Wanzong beast poked its head out. Suyu leaped onto it and jumped in. As the Wanzong beast traveled, it finally stopped at the edge of a desert. "Border," the greedy Wolf King said. He looked at the light screen that was inches away and said in a low voice, "Even the power of a path master would find it difficult to break this seal. Moreover, attacking it without permission will alert the king's mansion." What he meant was that Suyu should give up and not do any useless work. Chapter 22:14. Swoosh. Swoosh. At the other end of the border, on the other side of the light screen, 4 figures immediately appeared. They knelt down on one knee and said, "Greetings, Deputy Leader Su. The formation is ready." The 4 of them stepped forward and stood in front of the light screen. Suddenly, a bright light flowed under their feet, and a formation that had been prepared beforehand appeared. Seeing this formation, the last bit of hope in the greedy Wolf King's heart was completely shattered. He said in despair, "Supreme Mysterious Displacement Formation." Xue Mengfeiyu also recognized this formation. Her delicate body trembled slightly as she murmured, "Supreme Mysterious Displacement Formation, a formation that needs to be set up 3 months in advance to be successful. Moreover, it can only exist for 3 days." She stared at Suyu, her heart filled with suffocation. In other words, Suyu had already predicted that the border would be sealed 3 months ago. He had also planned an escape route and grasped the timing perfectly. His schemes were too deep, too deep. It was so profound that it made people feel despair. Activate. Suyu walked forward, carrying the two of them. A supreme mysterious displacement formation also appeared under their feet. This formation was one of the few great formations that could restrain other formations. As long as it was set up in advance on both sides of the formation, it could be exchanged for the living beings inside and outside. As soon as they stepped on it, the powerful formation power was activated. The next moment, the four black-clothed people outside the seal appeared in the formation where Suyu and the two of them had stood. Suyu and the others went to the formation outside. Finally, they had left the territory of the second peerless family. The formation under their feet immediately cracked and became abandoned. Disperse immediately. The four black-clothed people immediately fled in different directions. Suyu took out a warship and took off immediately. The activation of the supreme mysterious displacement formation must have alerted the Pajuan Emperor, so they couldn't stay here for long. As expected, after a few days, the Pajuan Emperor, the 5 Pathmasters, and a large number of people arrived. Looking at the broken supreme mysterious displacement formation, the Pajuan Emperor's face was gloomy. I can't believe such a lost ancient formation was created. Mr. Wuchen really planned this. This formation was said to have been lost in the last era. He didn't expect Mr. Wuchen to be able to set it up. Master, should we barge into the first peerless family to ask for the person? The beautiful woman in the palace dress, who was the fairy flower path master, asked with a frown. If they barged in, it would be an official battle between the two great families. This was the last thing they wanted to see. There's no other way. Emperor defeating army's face was as cold as ice. The greedy Wolf King was his most expected successor. If something happened to him, it would take a long time to cultivate a qualified successor. The Dowlords nodded slowly. Just as he was about to charge in, Emperor defeating armies suddenly received a message. Crushing it, Zhang Xian's eyes narrowed. It was a message from the golden-eyed playboy. The content was that young Master Dustless had betrayed the number 1 peerless family and joined the Pirate Alliance. There was also a variety of other information attached to it, which proved that golden-eyed Langjun did not make up lies. The Pirate Alliance. Emperor defeating army was enraged. After going around in a circle, it was still the pirates doing. Chase. There weren't that many taboos in the void. The Path Master directly teleported into the void, while the rest of the people boarded the warships and left in full force. The number 1 peerless family. The information in front of the golden-eyed playboy's eyes flew like snow. The corners of his mouth curled up into a look of deep surprise. Father, why are the reports changing so frequently? Bai Yun Hongxian, who was summoned by her father, walked in and looked curiously at the reports flying in. The golden-eyed playboy told her what happened in the number 2 peerless family. After listening, Bai Yun Hongxian's pretty eyes widened, and she said in disbelief, "How is this possible? Not to mention that the greedy Wolf King has great luck, no one can harm him at all. Moreover, the greedy Wolf King is in the number 2 peerless family, and he has Path Masters by his side all year round. How could anyone kidnap him? You don't understand, and neither do I." The golden-eyed playboy could not figure out how Suyu had successfully kidnapped the greedy Wolf King. If Xia Rukan, who was known as the Shocking Cloud, had been kidnapped, he would not have been so surprised. The greedy Wolf King's mysterious physique was something that even the Path Masters could not do anything about. How did Su Rushu do it? Amazing! Bai Yun Hongxian thought for a moment, and a look of approval appeared on her face. Being able to do what others could not, this was the impression Bai Yun Hongxian had of Su Rushu. In addition, Xue Meng Feiyu, who was a guest in the number 2 peerless family, was also kidnapped. The golden-eyed playboy looked at Bai Yun Hongxian meaningfully. Princess Pipa was also kidnapped? Bai Yun Hongxian was completely shocked. Xue Meng Feiyu, who was known as Princess Pipa, was one of the 2 peerless beauties who were on an equal footing with her. Her strength was said to be very powerful, second only to the greedy Wolf King, but she had been kidnapped together. This Su Rushu, in order to gain the trust of the pirates, has really done something earth-shattering, the golden-eyed playboy said frankly. He did not expect Su Yu to be so capable. Bai Yun Hongxian, on the other hand, was not so surprised. With Su Yu's wisdom when he saved her, the scene in front of them was unexpected, but reasonable. No matter what, Su Yu has done something that is very beneficial to the #1 peerless family, the golden-eyed playboy said. Especially beneficial to you. Me? Bai Yun Hongxian was very intelligent, and after a slight pause, she understood what he meant. With one less powerful competitor, she would have a better chance of marrying Ren Jingyun, right? Father, it is still too early to talk about this, Bai Yun Hongxian said softly. Ha ha! The golden-eyed playboy laughed meaningfully. In the void, in the direction of the pirate's lair, there were countless strong men of the #2 peerless family. They were searching all the civilizations along the way to prevent Su Yu from using the Wanzong beast of those civilizations to teleport back to the Pirate Alliance. In a certain civilization, in a pavilion on the peak of a mountain, looking at a crack in the space, Xue Mengfiu bit her red lips tightly. There was really no hope. Su Yu had even figured out that there was a Wanzong beast in this civilization, and he was well prepared. He had already arranged a perfect escape route so that they wouldn't have any chance to escape. I really admit defeat. The greedy Wolf King had seen how meticulous Su Yu was, and there was no hope of escaping. Su Yu frowned slightly. The Wanzong beast in front of him had appeared more than 2 days later than expected. Under normal circumstances, it should have left 2 days ago. Has someone disturbed the Wanzong beast and caused it to delay? Su Yu looked back at the void behind him. He did not know if there was enough time. As if to confirm his thoughts, several powerful breaths came from beyond the sky. After they appeared, they rushed to the places where the Wanzong beast might appear and conducted a strict search. One of the slightly familiar breaths was rushing to where Su Yu was. His heart sank slightly. When the Wanzong beast was traveling, it was not advisable to be disturbed. Otherwise, the Wanzong beast would panic and take it to a place that it might never return from. Even if the person who came was not strong, he still had the ability to disturb the Wanzong beast. Therefore, if this person really arrived in time, he had to be killed. As the breath of the newcomer approached, Su Yu saw an old woman who looked to be over 60 years old from afar. She was none other than Guest Elder Lu. Guest Lu looked left and right, looking for suspicious people. Suddenly, her gaze swept across the peak of the mountain and found 3 people standing there with no breath. 2 of them were the greedy Wolf King and Xue Mengfiu. In the middle was a man in a bamboo hat. Guest Lu's face lit up, and she immediately crushed a communication jade pendant. She then looked at the Wanzong beast, who had yet to appear, and sneered. Mr. Wuchen, you can't escape. With his identity exposed, Su Yu naturally would not hide anymore. He took off his bamboo hat, revealing the face that Guest Lu wanted to destroy with her own hands every night. An old man who does not die is a thief. Guest Lu, you really changed your appearance and became the loyal dog of the second peerless family, Su Yu said calmly. Cold energy flowed all over Guest Lu's body, and she exploded with a shocking murderous intent. She laughed loudly. Little bastard, isn't this all thanks to you? If you had not framed me and wrongly accused me, how could I have really betrayed you? Hearing this, the greedy Wolf King and Xue Mengfiu revealed strange expressions. Su Rushu was really scheming at every turn? Looking at Guest Lu, who looked like she wanted to eat Su Yu alive, only the heavens knew how badly she had been framed. I feel that even the young men of the first peerless family would be grateful to me if you betrayed me, Su Yu said with a smile. Guest Lu's face trembled, and she stared at Su Yu. If looks could kill, Su Yu would have been cut into pieces and died 10,000 times. Crack, the space behind him fluctuated. The Wanzong beast was about to appear. Guest Lu's eyes turned and she slowly retreated backward. There was no need to elaborate on what she was planning. Su Yu's expression was indifferent. He took a step forward and said, "I can only kill you first." "Haha, do you think you're worthy?" Guest Lu was not angry, but delighted. If Su Yu really had the ability to kill a strong man like the Killing Demon, she would still be wary of Su Yu. Unfortunately, she could now confirm that it was a self-directed play by Su Yu. His true strength was only that of an ordinary half-path master. "You underestimate the strength of a former Guest Lu." Guest Lu stopped in her tracks, and her old face was covered with coldness. "Actually, I can destroy you like a dog." As she spoke the last word, she had already released more than half of her realm of principles. "Die." She laughed maliciously and released 10,000 naked male bodies. One young man after another was coquettishly in the realm of principles, winking at her. But they were all hiding sharp blades in the dark. It would be very dangerous to fall into the realm of principles. The blue veins on Su Yu's forehead throbbed. It really is a realm of principles. Both her personality and this realm of principles were the same, and it gave people goosebumps all over. "Haha, I am not a human demon, and you can hit me as you please." Guest Lu sneered. "Die." The realm of principles suddenly rushed over. 10,000 naked young men rushed over with open arms. Su Yu felt his hair stand on end. Heavenly Dragon Taoist body. He transformed into a half-dragon and slashed down with a dragon claw. Crack. The realm of principles was directly torn apart from the middle. The naked man inside instantly vanished into thin air. Su Yu's claw did not stop, and with irresistible force, he tore Guest Lu's Taoist body apart. "How is this possible?" Guest Lu looked down at her cracked Taoist body, her face full of disbelief. Chapter 22:15. Her body had clearly been completely transformed. How could it be destroyed so easily? Su Yu said indifferently, "Actually, killing you would be as easy as killing a dog. If not for his status, he could have killed Guest Lu long ago at the Broken Heaven Mountain. Of course, it was not too late now." Swish. Guest Lu's soul flew out of his body, but before it could escape, it was devoured by Su Yu's soul vortex. Looking at the domain dissipating with the wind, Su Yu felt a chill run down his spine. He said, "If this domain could kill people, it would be disgusting." Crack. At that moment, the space cracked once again. The Wanzhong beast was about to appear. Su Yu returned to the peak of the mountain and stared at the space, feeling slightly nervous. Guest Lu had already informed the strong men of the second peerless family, but he did not know if they would make it in time. After a cup of tea's time, finally, the space cracked, and a Wanzhong beast emerged. Su Yu was about to bring the two of them up when he suddenly stopped in his tracks. He stared at the sky with a deep gaze. The majestic aura of the Path Masters descended in a frenzy. He would probably arrive before the Wanzhong beast left. At that time, he would only need to move a finger to interfere with the Wanzhong beast. And Su Yu would not be able to fight back on the Wanzhong beast. How troublesome! I can only use the power of all the Path Masters. Su Yu drew out the sinful sword, his heart sinking. If that happened, he would not even be able to move when he returned to the vicinity of the Pirate Alliance. Then, if he encountered pirates with malicious intentions, it would be hard to say what would happen. More than 90% of the pirates were criminals of all kinds. Killing and robbing was a common occurrence for them. However, if he fell into the hands of the second peerless family, he would undoubtedly die. As he made up his mind, the Path Master who had come to inquire about him appeared in this civilization. Su Yu only felt his vision blur before he saw the person clearly. "It really is you." Coincidentally, the person also knew Su Yu. "Haha, it's been a long time." Su Yu smiled faintly. It was the beautiful woman in the palace gown, the fairy flower Path Master. Her almond-shaped eyes contained a faint chill as she said, You ruined my plans, stole my treasure, and even dared to come to the second peerless family to kidnap our young master. Mr. Wuchen, I really admire your courage. You flatter me. As Su Yu spoke calmly, he slowly raised the sinful sword in his hand, and a wisp of hidden sharpness spread out like a snake's tongue. The celestial flower Daelord's pupils constricted slightly, and her heart skipped a beat for no reason. After many years of cultivation, her intuition told her that Su Yu was in grave danger. Young Master Dustless, do you think you can escape? Daelord Immortal Flower did not act rashly. However, Su Yu continued to press on. He calmly said, You don't have to use your little trick of diverting my attention on me. Aren't you just trying to make me forget about your young master? The celestial flower Daelord's expression remained the same, but there was a hint of stiffness in his expression. Now, quit this civilization immediately. Hearing this, the celestial flower Daelord fell into deep thought and continued to stall for time. However, Su Yu did not give her a chance. If you do not leave before the Wanzong beast appears, then I will have to kill your young master. He pulled back with one hand, and immediately, Greedy Wolf King was sucked into his palm, grabbing its neck. That arm transformed into a dragon arm, and suddenly exerted force. Immediately, Greedy Wolf King's neck creaked, as if it was about to be broken. The celestial flower Daelord's gaze froze, and she said in a low voice, Do you know the consequences? Su Yu calmly said, Whether I kill him or not, the consequences are the same for me. No matter how she treated Greedy Wolf King, once Su Yu was captured by the second peerless family, she would never let him go. The celestial flower Daelord felt troubled. Su Yu had a hostage in his hands, and for a while, she really could not do anything to him. Turning her gaze, the celestial flower Daelord gritted her teeth and said, Fine, I'll go. Otherwise, if anything happens to Greedy Wolf King, the fault may fall on me. If she caused Greedy Wolf King's death, not only would she have no merit, but she would also be guilty. Rather than that, she might as well retreat now. There would be no merit or fault. Whoosh! The celestial flower Daelord acted decisively and left immediately. In the blink of an eye, her aura disappeared from the civilization. Su Yu's brows were deeply furrowed, and he coldly snorted. Do you think I'm easy to fool? Under the detection of the heavenly eyes, the celestial flower Daelord did not leave. Instead, she drew out a whiff of her aura and shot it into the nothingness beyond the sky. She herself was hiding nearby, waiting for the moment when Su Yu stepped on the Wanzong beast and startled it. There was no sound in the nothingness. Su Yu's eyes were slightly cold, and he gently slashed at a certain spot in the nothingness. A sword mark streaked across a certain place, causing the space there to distort unnaturally. A figure with a gloomy expression appeared. It was the celestial flower Daelord. She threatened angrily, Mr. Wuchen, the dignity of the second peerless family cannot be offended. Even if we have to sacrifice a young master, we will never allow you to succeed. Since ancient times, there had never been an heir of one of the 7 peerless families who had been successfully kidnapped by pirates. If the second peerless family set a precedent, they would no longer have the face to stand among the 7 peerless families. Therefore, she would rather the Greedy Wolf King die at Su Yu's hands than allow him to be brought back to the pirate alliance. Su Yu's brows were deeply furrowed. After all, they were one of the 7 peerless families. It would not be easy to force them to submit with just a single young master. Since that was the case, he could only use some tricks and kill the celestial flower Daelord by force. Grasping the sinful sword, Su Yu mobilized the strength of the Daelord in his body and prepared to activate the Sword of Dawn and Dusk. But at that moment, a wave of boiling heat suddenly came from within Su Yu's inner world. In the unseen world, a mysterious destiny was flourishing. The Great Pearl of Destiny? Su Yu was surprised. The Greedy Wolf King had inserted the Great Pearl into Su Yu's body and had successfully chosen its master for the second time. But why would it suddenly activate at such a critical moment? Could it be that something unexpected was going to happen? Crack! At that moment, the space behind him had completely left, and the Wanzhong beast poked its head out from within. Strangely, there was a slightly confused woman standing on the back of the Wanzhong beast. She was dressed in a golden cloak and had a 7-colored crown on her head. Her features were delicate and elegant. She was like a queen who had descended upon the world. Xie Xiaoye, the celestial flower Daolord gasped, immediately recognizing who the person in front of her was. But hadn't Xie Xiaoye already returned to the Pirate Alliance? How could she appear on the Wanzhong beast? Xie Xiaoye composed herself and scanned the surroundings. Her gaze landed on the celestial flower Daolord, and she heaved a sigh of relief, revealing a look of relief. What a blessing from the heavens! I can't believe I came back alive. It turned out that Xie Xiaoye and the others had returned to the Pirate Alliance's lair at top speed. In order to save time, Xie Xiaoye had used a place where the Wanzhong beast appeared that she was very familiar with, who knew that as soon as she landed, there would be a major upheaval in that civilization. A few martial artists who were unaware of the situation were fighting nearby. The Wanzhong beast was alarmed, and it fled in panic in the space, not stopping for more than a month. Xie Xiaoye had already made up her mind to wander about in the endless barren land, never to return. But just now, the Wanzhong beast, who was running, was suddenly struck by some kind of power. Its body tilted to the side, and it crashed into the nearby space barrier. Then, just like that, it suddenly appeared. What made Xie Xiaoye even more overjoyed was that the place where it appeared was not a place that was too far away for her to return to, but not far away from the second peerless family. The celestial flower Daolord turned and fled without hesitation, her heart filled with extreme shock. Of all the people she could have run into, she had to run into the number one person in the Pirate Alliance, Xie Xiaoye? How could her unusual movements escape Xie Xiaoye's eyes? Perhaps this is the will of the heavens. During the great battle, none of the Daolords of the second peerless family were harmed. But now, you have delivered yourself to me. Since that is the case, I will accept it without hesitation. Xie Xiaoye's lips kept squirming, as if she was chanting some profound incantation. The celestial flower Daolord, who was fleeing, shuddered violently, and her whole body turned into wisps of green smoke. Then, she burst into flames with a bang. In an extremely short period of time, she was burned to ashes. The dignified celestial flower Daolord had died in the hands of Xie Xiaoye, who had appeared out of nowhere. Su Yu was stunned as he watched from the side. This was the greedy Wolf King's destiny? It was so evil that it rendered people speechless. The greedy Wolf King could not help but smile bitterly. He had thought that he had seen another chance to escape from death's door, but who knew that the opportunity would be ruined by the destiny that should have belonged to him? After killing the celestial flower Daolord, Xie Xiaoye sized up Su Yu. She had wanted to kill him casually. But she suddenly realized that Su Yu was strangling the greedy wolf, young master of the second peerless family. She could not help but be surprised. You are. Su Yu naturally did not dare to hide anything. He immediately said, I am the deputy leader of the Sea Wolves pirates, Su Rishu. I have come under orders to capture the greedy Wolf King. Hearing that, Xie Xiaoye's eyes were filled with disbelief. She knew that another deputy leader of the Sea Wolves pirates was carrying out the mission to capture the greedy Wolf King. When the 10 great pirates had discussed it, none of the pirate leaders had been willing to accept the mission. Only the Sea Wolves Dao Master had acted out of character and accepted the mission. Later, there were rumors that the Sea Wolves Dao Master had given the mission to a deputy leader. Everyone knew that the Sea Wolves Dao Master wanted to use the mission to kill someone. But what Xie Xiaoye found unbelievable was that the deputy leader had actually succeeded. Who was the greedy Wolf King? Even Xie Xiaoye felt uneasy dealing with that strange and unfathomable providence. Perhaps the greedy Wolf King's destiny would activate and kill her inexplicably. But the insignificant deputy leader before her had actually succeeded. Release your soul. I want to examine it a little, Xie Xiaoye said. Su Yu frowned slightly, feeling resistant in his heart. Don't worry, I will only examine your memories from this period of time. Xie Xiaoye did not allow him to argue. Her eyes flickered with soul light as she flipped through Su Yu's memories. After reading it, her eyes were filled with astonishment. Unbelievable! You actually managed to sneak into the core circle of the second peerless family? Xie Xiaoye was extremely surprised by Su Yu's careful and quick-witted mind. In terms of intelligence alone, Su Yu was even better than most of the Eternal Path Masters. But then, she laughed angrily. I was wondering why the nest of the Pirate Alliance would be robbed. So it was you. Su Yu's heart sank. Chapter 22:16. No pirate leader could tolerate what he had done to gain the trust of the second most powerful family. Well done. However, to Su Yu's surprise, Xie Xiaoye smiled and praised him. Those who achieve great things don't bother with trifles. Sacrificing partial benefits in exchange for greater benefits is a successful pirate. She looked Su Yu up and down as if he was a treasure. I have never admired anyone in my life. You are the first. If she were Su Yu, she would never have done what she had just done. Her eyes were filled with sincere admiration. She smiled and extended her hand to Su Yu. Su Rushu, would you like to join the Xiaoye pirates? Su Yu was stunned. The situation had changed so quickly that even he could not take it. He had thought he was dead meat. Yet, not only did Xie Xiaoye not do anything to him, she even took the initiative to recruit him? Su Yu pondered for a moment before cupping his fist. Thank you for your kindness, Leader Xiaoye. However, I have already joined the Sea Wolves pirate. Without a legitimate reason, I cannot join another pirate group. Xie Xiaoye did not take it seriously. That's hard to say. I can just ask the Sea Wolves pirates for you. I don't believe he would dare to refuse me if I asked for you. Su Yu's lips were slightly bitter. If he stayed with the Sea Wolves pirates, he could at least become a deputy leader. What kind of position could a pirate who joined Xiaoye get? Even the Sea Wolves sect master could recruit top talents like the Star Lady and the Stone Sword, let alone Xie Xiaoye. He had even more experts under his command. It would be difficult for him to be put in an important position after joining. You can rest assured that you will not be mistreated if you join me. Xie Xiaoye guaranteed. Su Yu could not believe it. Please allow me to return to the Sea Wolves pirates first. Okay. Xie Xiaoye did not force him and agreed immediately. She looked up at the sky and said, Pajuan Emperor is rushing over. It is not too late to use the Wanzong beast now. Su Yu nodded and brought Tanlang to the pavilion. With his other hand, he grabbed Xue Mengfiu, whose face was deathly pale from despair. Killing two birds with one stone. Haha, the 7 unique civilizations are going to be in an uproar. Your name, Su Rushu, will resound throughout the ages. Xie Xiaoye laughed and led them onto the Wanzong beast. Roar Wanzongsho growled and left with the 3 of them. When the space was completely sealed, Emperor Pajun and the others finally appeared. He glanced at the celestial flower Dowlord, who was reduced to ashes, and then looked at the remaining aura of the Wanzongsho. Emperor defeating armies' eyes almost popped out of their socket. Sir Wuchen, my second peerless family will do everything we can to grind your bones and scatter your ashes, never to reincarnate. The unforgettable hatred pierced through the void like a sharp arrow and shook countless civilizations. At this moment, the living beings of countless civilizations all knew of a person named Su Rushu. A person who was sworn by the second most exceptional family to kill at all costs. Not long after, the headquarters of the Pirate Alliance. Standing outside the nest, Su Yu thought for a moment, then said, Path Master Xiaoye, please give me some time. I want to talk to Sea Wolf Path Master alone. Even if they wanted to join the Little Moon Pirates, they should at least see Sea Wolf Dao Master's attitude, right? If he knew that he had the ability to capture the greedy Wolf King alive, it would not be too late for him to leave. Okay. Xie Xiaoya thought for a moment, then said, "If he makes things difficult for you, just call me." "Thank you." Su Yu cupped his fists, then turned around and walked into the area of the Sea Wolf pirates. When he arrived at the main battleship of Sea Wolf Path Master, as soon as he boarded the battleship, he was greeted by many strange gazes. They were all sizing Su Yu up with a strange look in their eyes. Some were surprised, some were puzzled, and most of all, they were pitying him. Su Yu was slightly confused, so he went to the great hall where Sea Wolf Path Master often met with people. When he arrived at the front of the hall, he saw that it was decorated with lanterns and streamers, and it was very lively. Beautiful maids were carrying exquisite wine and meat, going in and out with joyful expressions on their faces. Did something good happen? Su Yu was slightly surprised as he walked along the stairs to the door of the great hall. Looking inside, he saw that the great hall was filled with 18 banquet tables. Every table was occupied by the middle and high-level pirates of the Sea Wolf Pirate. Among them were the Star Lady, the Snow Swordsman, and the Poisonous Mathematician, whom Su Yu was more familiar with. At the banquet table in the middle, the Sword in the Stone had a joyful look on his face as he toasted the Sea Wolf Path Master, who was sitting on the throne of the pirate leader. He said, "I will try my best to fulfill my duty as a deputy leader." The Sea Wolf Path Master had a happy smile on his face as he took out his wine cup and toasted the sword in the air. He said, "Good. I have high hopes for you." Su Yu saw this, and a myriad of thoughts ran through his mind. The Pirate Alliance had an agreement that every group of pirates would only have one leader and 2 deputy leaders. There would never be one more deputy leader. Now that the Sword in the Stone was appointed as the new deputy leader, it meant that one of the deputy leaders had been replaced. The Star Lady was the person that the Sea Wolf Path Master thought most highly of, so the one who had been replaced couldn't be her. It could only be Su Yu. Su Yu stood at the main door, his long and lonely figure shrouding some guests. When they turned around and recognized Su Yu's face, they couldn't help but be shocked. Many guests sensed that something was wrong, and when they looked over, they all had strange looks on their faces. Finally, the Sea Wolf Path Master was alarmed. When he looked at the door, he was dumbfounded. A month ago, the Sea Wolf Path Master's power attached to Su Yu's body had been cut off. Based on this, he concluded that Su Yu had failed and died. Therefore, not long after returning to the Pirate Alliance, a 3-day celebration banquet was held to congratulate the Sword in the Stone's promotion as the new deputy leader. Today was the last day. However, the Sea Wolf Path Master didn't expect that Su Yu was still alive. Not only did he not die, but he also appeared at the celebration banquet. At the banquet, the guests looked at each other and secretly communicated with each other. "This is so King embarrassing." However, Su Rushu should be the most embarrassed one. Even if he came back 1 day later, it would have been fine. Depriving him of the deputy leader position in front of his own eyes. Nothing could be more embarrassing than this, right? I can't help but sympathize with Su Rushu, although he only has himself to blame. The Sword in the Stone also noticed Su Yu. He was surprised and frowned deeply. Su Yu didn't die? When Su Yu saw everyone's expressions, his heart turned ice-cold. It was probably because Su Yu was frozen by the Snow Dream Flying Rain with ice that the Sea Wolf Path Master mistakenly thought that he was dead. However, that happened more than half a month ago. Moreover, it would take another 10 days for the news to be sent back. A few days after confirming Su Yu's death, the Sea Wolf Path Master immediately held a celebration banquet for the Sword in the Stone. Su Yu's heart turned cold bit by bit. He was fighting for the Sea Wolves pirates outside, fighting for them. But what were the Sea Wolves pirates doing? Knowing that he had just died, they couldn't wait to deprive him of the deputy leader position and hold a celebration banquet? This was the most despicable thing. At this moment, Su Yu knew that the Sea Wolves pirates couldn't be left alive. Even if he stayed in such a ruthless place, he wouldn't be put in an important position. Moreover, he might perform too well and be feared by the Sea Wolf Pathmaster. As he said in the past, he shouldn't perform too well. Otherwise, he would arouse the suspicion of the Sea Wolf Pathmaster. Was there any need for him to stay in such a place? Oh, you are back. The Sea Wolf Pathmaster was stunned for a moment. After thinking for a while, he asked calmly, "How was the mission?" Suyu hid the emotions in his eyes and said calmly, "Not perfect. Capturing the greedy Wolf King was a revenge on the second peerless family, but capturing the Snow Dream Flying Rain at the same time offended the sixth peerless family. Therefore, this mission couldn't be considered perfect. However, in the ears of the Sea Wolf Pathmaster and the others, they naturally understood it as a failure. There was no disappointment in the eyes of the Sea Wolf Pathmaster, because he never had any expectations. Well, it's good that you are back," the Sea Wolf Pathmaster said calmly. After a pause, he said, "Because they mistakenly thought you had died, and the Sea Wolves pirates couldn't live without a deputy leader, they appointed the Stone Sword as the new deputy leader. Now that you are back, give me the deputy leader's seal," the Sea Wolf Pathmaster said. "I won't mistreat you. You will be the helm master of the First Fleet." From his tone, it seemed that taking away the deputy leader's position and giving it to him was letting him off easy. Without saying a word, Suyu handed the skeleton-shaped deputy leader's seal to the Sea Wolf Pathmaster. The Sea Wolf Pathmaster nodded and took out the seal of the First Fleet's helmmaster. Then, he threw it to Suyu and said, "Take it." It was as if he was giving alms. However, Suyu didn't take it. Instead, he tilted his body slightly and said indifferently, "Tao Master Sea Wolf, you've misunderstood." Sea Wolf Dowlord looked at the clanking seal on the ground and was slightly displeased. "What did you call me?" As a member of the Sea Wolves Pirates, he should be addressed as leader and not as Sea Wolf Tao Master. "Sea Wolves Pathmaster," Suyu repeated. "I handed over the deputy leader's seal, which means that I quit the Sea Wolves Pirates. The Sea Wolves Pirates are full of talent. I, Su, am just a mediocre person who is unable to serve the Sea Wolves Pirates. I am ashamed, so I hereby announce that I will withdraw from the Sea Wolves Pirates." Sea Wolf Daelord's displeasure deepened when he heard that, and he thought to himself, "Are you trying to spite me? Why doesn't he take a look at himself first? If it weren't for the fear of outsiders gossiping about him, he wouldn't be fit to be the branch leader of the First Fleet with that little bit of cheating ability of his." With that in mind, Tao Master Sea Wolf's expression was calm as he said indifferently, "Since Deputy Leader Su has made up your mind, I won't hold you back." He felt that Suyu would regret it sooner or later. If he left the Sea Wolves Pirates, who would be willing to take Suyu in? Not to mention the position of branch leader of the First Fleet? No one, right? "Thank you, Tao Master Sea Wolf, for granting my wish." Suyu had completely given up on the Sea Wolves pirate. Then, he turned around and walked away in the afterglow of the setting sun in front of the pitiful eyes of the guests. "Wait!" The Stone Sword left the banquet and walked over with his hands clasped behind his back. "What's the matter?" Suyu looked at him, but there was no sign of the Stone Sword in his eyes. He really didn't care about such a person. Chapter 22:17. Suyu was like a drowning dog, so he could no longer challenge the position of the Stone Sword. The reason why he did this was that he wanted to quickly establish his prestige as the deputy leader by suppressing Suyu. He wanted everyone to know that from now on, one of the two deputy leaders of the Sea Wolves Pirates would be the Stone Sword, not Su Rushu. The pity in everyone's eyes deepened. A fallen phoenix was no better than a chicken. A dignified deputy leader actually had to fall to the fate of kneeling in front of everyone. What a pity, what a pity! Suyu did not speak, but looked at the Sea Wolf Pathmaster. He was sitting on the leader's throne, looking down at Suyu and said calmly, "Deputy Leader Shi's words are reasonable. It's just an etiquette. Su Rushu, just do as he said." Etiquette? If it were another occasion, it might be etiquette. But could it still be etiquette in this situation? Wasn't this an extreme form of humiliation? Moreover, when he was the deputy leader, did the stone sword ever kneel down in front of him? Looking at the biased Sea Wolf Pathmaster, Suyu was calm. He had already seen through the Sea Wolf Pathmaster's character, so how could he have any expectations? Such an answer was not surprising at all. Did you hear that? Kneel down. The stone sword's eyes were aggressive, and his tall figure was even more intimidating. Suyu shook his head calmly and said, "Maybe your ears are not very good. Do you need me to repeat it again? Just now I have quit the Sea Wolves Pirate. Now I am neither your subordinate nor a member of the Sea Wolves Pirates. What reason do you have for me to kneel down to you?" The stone sword sneered. "As long as you haven't stepped out of the hall, you are still a member of the Sea Wolves Pirates." He had made up his mind that Suyu had to kneel down today, no matter what. "Then I will leave," Suyu said calmly as he turned around and walked out of the hall. "Guards! The members of the Sea Wolves Pirates are disrespecting the deputy leader. Take them down." The stone sword ordered aggressively. Immediately, 2 rows of pirates came from outside the hall. They did not care about Suyu, the former deputy leader, at all. They pounced on him like tigers and wolves. Suyu did not even look at them. He did not even stop and continued walking. However, a layer of extremely powerful sword chi appeared around his body, forming a circle and slashing all the pirates that pounced on him. The figures of the pirates were sent flying like sandbags, crashing in all directions. Many tables were smashed and overturned. In an instant, the rich aroma of wine and meat filled the hall. Seeing that Suyu dared to fight back, Sword in the Stone's face was filled with hostility. He pulled out the stone sword on his back and said coldly, "You dared to defy the deputy leader and injure a law enforcer. They deserve to die the most." In any case, Suyu was already worthless, so the Sea Wolf Path Master wouldn't say a word if he killed him in front of everyone. As the sword slashed down, one of Suyu's feet had already stepped out of the palace. However, he suddenly withdrew his leg and stood back in the hall. He slowly turned around and stared coldly at the sword in the stone. He endured again and again, gave way again and again, retreated again and again. However, the sword in the stone did not show any signs of restraint. Suyu was not made of clay, and he had his own anger. Looking at the stone sword, Suyu said calmly, "I have never paid attention to an ant like you. Since you want to attract my attention, I will pay some attention to you." Suyu didn't seem to move at all. He just raised his hand slightly and easily caught the stone sword's sword that was slashing at him. No matter how sharp the sword was, or how much power it carried, it was caught by Suyu single-handedly at this moment. On the contrary, the stone sword stopped abruptly because of the falling momentum of the stone sword. A great counterforce came from the hilt of the stone sword, which shook off the stone sword's hand. The stone sword that he had been relying on was snatched away by Suyu. "You, what kind of evil trick did you use?" The stone sword turned pale with fright. The stone sword was not an ordinary sword, but a doctrine artifact fairy embryo that he had refined with the heavenly stone bloodline for a long time. Its power was so strong that even the Path Master didn't dare to block it with his body. However, it was caught by Suyu in the air. How could this be possible? Suyu held the hilt of the sword with one hand and the blade with the other. Then, he broke it with both hands at the same time. Crack! The stone sword was broken into 2 pieces. "My stone sword!" The stone sword yelled in disbelief. However, while he was still yelling, his vision went black. Suyu was approaching him. The stone sword was extremely angry, and he roared as he charged at Suyu. He was a half-path master, whose body and soul were both taoified, and he was extremely powerful. In his anger, he exerted all his strength, regardless of anything else. Suyu's eyes were indifferent as he pointed a finger at the stone sword's palm. Crack! Crack! A horrifying scene appeared. The stone sword's arm was broken into pieces by Su Yu's finger. In the end, his whole arm was peeled off, and half of his body was full of cracks. The eyes of the people present were filled with shock. They couldn't believe what they had seen. The stone sword's body as a path master couldn't even block Su Yu's finger. Plop! After suffering from the tremendous force, sword in the stone's body fell unsteadily to the ground, fear filling his eyes. Pow! Su Yu stepped forward and stomped on his face, burying his head into the ground. The stone sword howled in pain. He struggled with his remaining arm, trying to get rid of Su Yu's foot. However, he couldn't do anything to Su Yu's foot. He was like a defenseless ant that was being stepped on by someone. Su Yu looked at the stone sword's fearful expression, which was completely different from his previous arrogance, and said calmly, "You dare to be arrogant with such little ability?" He snorted softly and kicked the stone sword with the tip of his foot. The stone sword fell on the table in the middle of the room. With a crashing sound, the table was smashed into pieces. The stone sword was lying on the ground, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Su Yu looked at his abdomen, which had a huge hole in it. Even if his injury was healed, it would leave irreversible sequelae. Su Yu shook his sleeves and walked out of the room expressionlessly, ignoring the people who kept quiet out of fear. "Humph! You are courting death." The Sea Wolf Path Master's face was gloomy. He admitted that he had misjudged Su Yu. Su Yu was indeed extraordinarily powerful, but he had crippled the deputy leader he had personally promoted at the celebration banquet. Did Su Yu think about his dignity? Swish! The Sea Wolf Path Master's attack was decisive and ruthless. "You injured my deputy leader and you want to leave? You should ask me first." Su Yu's eyes were full of killing intent. He turned around and turned into a wholly half-human half-dragon. Two dragon arms collided with the Sea Wolf Path Master. Thud! Thud! The Sea Wolf Path Master felt an earth-shattering force, which forced him to retreat. All the people present gasped in shock. Su Rushu was not at a disadvantage when she collided with the Sea Wolf Path Master. Instead, she forced the Sea Wolf Path Master to retreat. At this moment, the Sea Wolf Path Master was really shocked. He had thought that Su Yu was just stronger than the stone sword. However, when they exchanged blows, he found that it was not the case at all. The strength of his body had surpassed that of the Sea Wolf Path Master. Among the 10 great pirates, Xie Xiaoye was probably the only one who could take a punch from him without batting an eyelid. The gloomy look on his face disappeared immediately, and was replaced by delight. He said, "What happened to your strength?" His heart was thumping wildly, and he realized that he had unintentionally recruited a genius who defied the natural order. Su Yu did not cheat in the martial power test that day. Instead, he reached 19,000 martial power points with his own strength. The Sea Wolf Path Master was ecstatic. He had recruited a strong man who was second only to the Sea Wolf Path Master. However, before he could finish his question, a boundless golden gust of wind attacked him. The Sea Wolf Path Master's pupils constricted, and a giant sea wolf appeared behind him to resist the gust of wind. However, the gust of wind was so powerful that it shattered the virtual image of the sea wolf. The Sea Wolf Path Master groaned, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. With an angry look on his face, he said in a low voice, "Xie Xiaoye, are you crazy? How could you attack me?" Swish! Beside Su Yu, a golden gust of wind stopped, and Xie Xiaoye's figure appeared. She checked whether Su Yu was injured and said, "I was wondering why you didn't come out after such a long time. Turns out you were bullied by the sea wolf." Su Yu said, "Thank you, Xiaoye Pathmaster, but I'm fine." "Okay, did you tell the sea wolf about the situation?" "No." Su Yu said calmly, "There is no need to tell him. I have quit the sea wolf's pirates." Xie Xiaoye's eyes lit up, and she said with a smile, "Haha, a fine bird chooses a good tree to nest in. From now on, join my Xiaoye pirates, and I will appoint you as the first deputy leader. Your position will be higher than the other deputy leaders." Hearing this, everyone was moved. Xie Xiaoya's pirates were the most elite among all the pirates. It was said that the two current deputy leaders were dragons among men, and their strength and potential were even greater than the Star Ladies. However, Xie Xiaoya was willing to remove one of the deputy leaders' positions, and let Su Yu take it? How much trust did she have in Su Yu? The Sea Wolf Path Master was also surprised. Was it because Xie Xiaoya saw Su Yu's powerful strength? Regret welled up in his heart, and he moved his lips, trying to persuade Su Yu to stay. However, was it even possible? One was the strongest deputy leader of the pirates, and the other was the deputy leader of the weakest pirate. One of them had shown him kindness, and the other wanted to kill him. No matter what, it was impossible for Su Yu to come back, right? As a pirate leader, the Sea Wolf Path Master felt that he still had some dignity. If he lost Su Yu, then so be it. If he forced him to stay, wouldn't it be humiliating? Let's go. I, Xie Xiaoya, promise you that I won't let you be wronged like you were in the Sea Wolf Pirates. Xie Xiaoya patted Su Yu's shoulder and promised him. Su Yu nodded and left with Xie Xiaoya. The Sea Wolf Path Master looked at the messy banquet and said, "Clean it up." Although he was slightly regretful that he had misjudged and lost Su Yu, he quickly regained his composure. Regarding Su Yu's matter, just let everyone know about it. Don't tell anyone else, the Sea Wolf Path Master said. If word of it spread, the Sea Wolf Path Master's reputation would be somewhat damaged. However, even if he wanted to keep it a secret, he might not be able to. Several days later, a piece of news that was like a thunderclap shook the entire pirate alliance. The greedy Wolf King, the second Peerless family's young master, and the sixth Peerless family's heir, Xue Mengfiu, were kidnapped and brought back. The pirate alliance dreamed of kidnapping the heirs of the aristocratic families and making a name for themselves. Unfortunately, they never got what they wanted. Now, two of them were kidnapped at once. How could they not be shocked? The Sea Wolf Path Master was shocked when he heard the news. Who did it? Su Yu came into his mind, but he quickly rejected the idea. Even the Path Master might not be able to capture the greedy Wolf King, let alone Su Yu. The third night was the first time he tried to break out, and he would gradually increase the amount of breakouts in the future. Chapter 22:18. The difficulty of catching the greedy Wolf King was well known. It should be Xie Xiaoya herself, Sea Wolf Dao Master thought to himself. Leader, it's the deputy leader of the Xiaoya pirates. The reporter looked hesitant. Sea Wolf Dao Master couldn't help but be surprised. Deputy leader? From his point of view, Xie Xiaoya herself wouldn't have been able to handle it, but the person who had done it was a vice leader? It was really hard to believe. Which deputy leader is it? Iron Hands or Wusu? Sea Wolf asked. Unlike the other pirates, Xie Xiaoya's strength was not severely affected. Her two vice leaders were still there. However, Sea Wolf Dao Master found it unbelievable. Xie Xiaoya had clearly rejected the mission to capture the greedy Wolf King. Why did he secretly send the deputy leader to complete the mission? The reporter lowered his head, not daring to look at Sea Wolf Dao Master's eyes. He whispered, Is it Deputy Chief Su? Surnamed Su? Sea Wolf Dao Master's heart began to pound, and his eyes were filled with speculation and disbelief. How could he forget that a few days ago, Xie Xiaoya announced in front of the Sea Wolves pirates that she was going to make Su Rushu the first vice leader. Tai Shou and Wu Su's original names were not Su. Was there a need to say who this deputy leader Su was? However, he did not want to believe it. He did not dare to believe that Su Yu had actually completed the mission that he had sent Su Yu to his death. Yes, it's Su Rushu. The reporter's words extinguished Sea Wolf Daolord's last bit of hope. It was really Su Rushu. Didn't he say that he didn't complete the mission perfectly? Sea Wolf Dao Master muttered to himself as his mind went blank. Then, he suddenly realized something and slumped back on the throne. Not only had Su Yu captured the greedy Wolf King, but he had also captured Shui Meng Fei Yu. In a sense, this was not considered a perfect completion of the mission. Sea Wolf Dao Master had mixed feelings when he thought of this. He had stripped away the position of the vice leader of a top genius who was able to kidnap the successors of two aristocratic families in one go. No, not only did he strip him of his position, but he also deliberately humiliated him and even personally taught him a lesson in the end. He chased such a person away and forced him into Xie Xiaoye's camp. Moreover, all he had done in exchange for was a piece of trash who did not even have the power to retaliate against Su Yu. To be honest, the stone sword was very outstanding, but compared to Su Rushu, especially Su Yu who could capture the greedy Wolf King and the Snow Dream Rain at the same time, he was nothing. Could it even touch a single strand of Su Yu's hair? What did it mean to throw a watermelon and pick a sesame seed? Sea Wolf Dowlord was a living reality. Leader, we have an important matter to report. At this time, the two deputy leaders and several branch leaders came to report. Sea Wolf Dowlord returned to his senses and said dejectedly, "Come in." The group of people looked a little anxious. Sea Wolf Dao Master looked at everyone and felt an inexplicable pain in his heart when his gaze fell on the sword in the stone, who had recovered a little. It was as if a needle had pierced into his heart. Sea Wolf Dowlord had the urge to slap himself when he saw him. What kind of eyes did I have to chase away a talent like Su Rushu for this kind of trash? Sword in the stone, after you recover from your injuries, go to a new star area and open up a new territory for the Sea Wolves pirate. This is a very difficult task, and only you can do it. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed slightly. They had finally come to this step. Opening up a new territory meant they had to become enemies with the local forces, and the people who opened it would suffer heavy casualties. Usually, less than 1 out of 10 people survived. Anyone who was sent to open up a new territory was basically a person who wasn't put in an important position or was a traitor. Because of the sword in the stone, a person like Su Yu was chased away. The last thing that Sea Wolf Dao Master wanted to see now was the sword in the stone, right? The sword in the stone's body trembled, and his eyes were full of regret. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have done it in the first place. Wouldn't it have been better for him to be the first branch leader and be valued and cultivated by the leader? Now he had nothing. You came to report together. Did something important happen? Sea Wolf Dao Master asked. The Star Lady said in a serious voice, "Yes, we found traces of the second peerless family's activities in our territory." Sea Wolf Dao Master immediately became serious and said, "Tell me quickly." The second peerless family would never risk entering the territory of the Pirate Alliance. Today we found that we have lost contact with several frigates protecting the main warship. No matter how we tried to contact the captains, we couldn't get a reply. Then we sent people to contact them face to face. In the end, none of them came back, and we couldn't find any clues. Until Captain Poisonous Sutra went in person, he only sent half a message back. Hearing this strange situation, Sea Wolf Dao Master knew that something had happened, and it wasn't a trivial matter. What message did he send back? The Star Lady said, he only said 3 words, "Pajuan Emperor." Sea Wolf Dao Master's pupils constricted violently. Did Pajuan Emperor come to the Pirate Alliance personally? Let's go. Follow me to take a look. Sea Wolf Dao Master's heart was heavy as he led a group of powerhouses to the frigate that had lost contact with them. However, as soon as he appeared, an extremely terrifying aura engulfed the main warship. He saw Pajuan Emperor, Dao Master Moyuan, and the other 3 Path Lords, as well as hundreds of half-step Path Lords, charging toward them in a frigate. Pajuan Emperor's eyes shone with a cold light as he jumped onto the main warship and attacked Sea Wolf Dao Master without saying a word. Sea Wolf Dao Master sucked in a breath of cold air and hurriedly used his Path Master's power to activate the various formations on the main warship. he shouted anxiously, "inform the rest of the pirates." His heart pounded wildly as he used the power of the formations to resist Pajuan Emperor. However, how powerful was Pajuan Emperor? Could he resist him completely? He was defeated by Pajuan Emperor's palm strike after just one exchange of blows, causing him to vomit a mouthful of blood. "Where is Su-Rushu? Where is my son?" Pajuan Emperor asked with bloodshot eyes, as if he wanted to eat someone alive. After Su-Yu escaped, Pajuan Emperor was extremely furious. He chose 3 Path Lords to fight their way into the Pirate Alliance's lair to rescue his son. Only by doing so could he redeem the reputation of the second peerless family. They used the Wan Zong beast to find the vicinity. After lurking for a day, they secretly attacked. Finally, they approached the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance without alerting the rest of the pirate. Now they suddenly launched a fatal attack. If everything went smoothly, they should be able to rescue the greedy Wolf King before the rest of the pirates reacted. At the mention of Su-Rushu, Sea Wolf Dao Master's heart was filled with bitterness, regret, and anger. Su-Yu had captured the heirs of the 2 families, and all the fame and benefits that came with it had belonged to Xiaoye. However, the revenge of the second peerless family had all fallen on him. He didn't get any benefits, only to attract all the disadvantages. He clenched his teeth and said shyly, "Su-Rushu has left the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance and joined the pirates that Xiaoye is in." Hearing this, Pajuan Emperor looked at him and said coldly, "Do you think I'll believe you? If Sea Wolf Dao Master didn't treat such a dazzling genius like Su-Rushu as a treasure, would he allow him to leave the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance? No one would believe him, right? Unless the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance was hopelessly stupid." Sea Wolf Dao Master's heart was filled with bitterness. "Look, even the enemy doesn't believe that I'm that stupid. But the fact is, I really did. Hand over Su-Rushu, or you will die without a burial place." With boundless anger, Pajuan Emperor attacked angrily. Every attack made Sea Wolf Dao Master feel extremely uncomfortable. At the same time, the other 3 Dao Masters were slaughtering and capturing captive. They were searching the captives' souls. After a short while, the 3 Dao Masters stopped and came before Pajuan Emperor. They said, "Family Master, you got the wrong person." Pajuan Emperor said coldly, "Isn't Su-Rushu the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance's deputy leader? Why did you get the wrong person?" Dao Master Moyuan said, "A few days ago, Su-Rushu was indeed the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance's deputy leader. However, a few days ago, Su-Rushu was stripped of her position by Sea Wolf Dao Master. At the same time, she helped the new deputy leader to bully him. Now, Su-Rushu has been forced to leave the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance." Hearing this, Pajuan Emperor looked at Sea Wolf Dao Master in disbelief. He couldn't understand what Sea Wolf Dao Master was thinking. A person like Su-Yu might not be the only one in the world, but he was definitely one of a kind. Such a talent would be considered pretty good even in an 8-star civilization. In a 7-star civilization, he would definitely be the king of geniuses. Yet, he actually drove him away? Was Sea Wolf Dao Master born with a defect in his intelligence? Pajuan Emperor thought to himself. Feeling Pajuan Emperor and the 3 Path Masters looking at him, Sea Wolf Dao Master really wanted to find a hole in the ground to hide in. This matter had already become a humiliation and a black mark on him that he couldn't get rid of. However, because the truth had been revealed, Pajuan Emperor stopped his attack. His face was gloomy as he asked, "Where is Su-Rushu now?" "She has joined Xiaoye's pirates, and was appointed as the first deputy leader by her." "What?" Pajuan Emperor clenched his fists angrily. The battle in front of him must have attracted the attention of most of the pirates, and they were rushing over. How could they have a chance to attack Xiaoye again? If they didn't leave now, they would be surrounded by the entire Pirate Alliance and be completely annihilated. Moreover, Xiaoye's unfathomable abilities made it impossible to take Su-Yu from her hands. It was already hopeless for them to take back the greedy Wolf King. Retreat. Pajuan Emperor made a prompt decision and led everyone away quickly. Before long, the pirates arrived at the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance's territory. Looking at the destroyed corvettes, the battered battleships, and the many newly recruited pirates, the 9 great pirates were all surprised. Knowing that it was the doing of the second peerless family, everyone was surprised and had a strange look on their faces. The incident of Su Rushu being driven away had already spread like wildfire in the Pirate Alliance. Sea Wolf Dao Master had been blind to send a heaven ruler king like Su Rushu to Xie, which made him a laughingstock. What was even more ridiculous was that Sea Wolf Dao Master didn't get any benefits, but was instead given special treatment by the second peerless family. Sea Wolf Dao Master clenched his fists. He had never felt so vexed and humiliated in his life. Looking up, he suddenly saw Su Yu standing beside Xie with his hands clasped behind his back. He had a calm look on his face as he looked at the miserable situation calmly. He had planned to wait until 5, but he was delayed by something today, so he missed 4. As mentioned before, if one missed 5 updates, it would add up to 9 updates. Chapter 22:19. Dao Master Sea Wolf's expression was extremely complicated when he saw that it had nothing to do with him. Su Yu must be laughing at him in his heart now, right? After all, it wasn't common for a Dao Lord to make a joke out of himself, right? However, he didn't know that Su Yu didn't want to laugh at such a person. He was glad that the Providence Dao Pearl had allowed him to meet Xie. Otherwise, Sea Wolf Dao Lord would not be able to protect him even if he managed to take back the Pirate Alliance. Strengthen the defenses, Xie said indifferently. At this moment, the second peerless clan must have fled far away. It was useless to chase after them. Since everyone is here, let's have a temporary meeting to discuss how to deal with the 2 hostages, said Xie. Soon, in the main hall of Sea Wolf Dao Lord's battleship, Su Yu, the greedy Wolf King, and Xuemeng Fiyu were among the 10 pirate chief. Theoretically speaking, this was a discussion meeting between the pirate chief. As the deputy chief, Su Yu had no right to participate in it. However, the 10 pirate leaders tacitly agreed not to object. Instead, most of them cast friendly gazes at him. For a person like Su Yu, even though he was Xie's rival, they still admired him. How do you think we should deal with these 2? Xie asked. The leaders exchanged glances. The Blue Phoenix pirate captain's charming eyes moved back and forth between the greedy Wolf King and Snow Dream Feiyu. She said with a smile that did not seem like a smile, "It's rare for us to capture the heirs of 2 great aristocratic families. Of course, we have to lock them up for a few more years so that our pirate alliance can earn enough reputation. Then, we can extort resources from the 2 great aristocratic families." The other pirate leaders nodded in agreement. This time, the pirate alliance could be considered to have done something big. I think it's better to extort resources as soon as possible and exchange the hostages with them, Xie said indifferently. The Blue Phoenix leader pondered for a moment before asking, "Why do you say that?" Xie seemed to be their leader now. Xie hesitated for a moment before saying, "To tell you the truth, I recently captured someone's maid and learned some incredible news from her." Whose maid? Everyone was curious. For Xie to say the word incredible, it was clear that this matter was no small matter. Xia. As soon as he said those words, Su Yu clearly felt the atmosphere in the Great Hall tighten. Traces of fear and apprehension overflowed from the eyes of several pirate leaders. "Leader Xiaoye, you're extremely daring. I'm impressed, truly impressed." The leader of the Blue Phoenix tribe cupped her fists, her admiration for Xiaoye coming from the bottom of her heart. The other pirate leaders also looked at Xiaoye with admiration. Su Yu was also slightly surprised. In the past few days, he had read a lot of information about the 7 absolute civilizations in Xiaoye's pirate ship. Among all the information, there was one name that appeared the most frequently. That was Xia Ian. He was the head of the 7th peerless family. It was said that he was a descendant of the Sky Legacy Great Emperor. The number of times the other 6 family heads' names appeared was less than Xia Yan's. All the information was describing Xia Yan's incredible and legendary deeds. It was said that he was born to be an emperor. In just 200 years, he had broken through to become a Dowlord. At the age of 300, he defeated his father and became the new head of the 7th peerless family. When he was 500 years old, when he was traveling, he passed by a 7-star civilization and was chased by that civilization. He single-handedly defeated all the Dowlord experts of that civilization and took the most famous beauty of that civilization as his wife. Then, he calmed down and focused on cultivating. Billions of years had passed, and he had never shown his face again. Everything was managed by his father, Xia Donglai. Therefore, although the head of the 7th peerless family was Xia Donglai on the surface, everyone knew who it was in reality. Now that they heard that Xie Xiaoye had dared to capture Xia Yan's maid, how could they not be shocked by his audacity? The Blue Phoenix leader said, "So, what's the news about that maid?" Everyone was curious. As the saying went, the Prime Minister's doorstep was a 7th-grade official. The maid also depended on whose maid it was. Xia Yan's maid had a high status and was valued by the Dowlords. Xia Yan is about to come out of seclusion. All of a sudden, the whole place fell silent again. Even the sound of breathing was restrained. It was quiet. After a long while, Sea Wolf Path Master's expression froze. "You mean he's coming out?" Sea Wolf Path Master couldn't even complete his sentence, which showed the fear in his heart. The expressions of the other pirates also turned extremely ugly. If Xia Yan really came out and attacked the Pirate Alliance, he could probably wipe out all the pirates by himself. "Yes, he's coming out of seclusion," Xie Xiaoye said calmly. "However, he's not coming out for our Pirate Alliance. He has a premonition that something big will happen in the 7 absolute civilizations, so he came out in advance." Something big? Everyone was shocked again. How many things had happened in the 7 absolute civilizations in the past billions of years? Even when they were almost conquered by an extraterrestrial civilization, Xia Yan had never shown himself. Now, he was actually coming out of seclusion for something. "What is it?" Xie Xiaoye said deeply. "The Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode has appeared." Hearing that, all the pirate leaders were shocked. Those who were weak even stood up. Their eyes widened, their pupils constricted, and their breathing quickened as if they had fallen into great shock. "Is that true?" The Blue Phoenix pirate was shocked. Xie Xiaoye nodded. "I've searched my soul repeatedly and confirmed it." Hearing that, all the pirate leaders became excited. The Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode. It's said that it's a supreme cave abode that contains the Heavenly Legacy Thearka's entire life's accumulation. It's said that if one can obtain even a 10,000th of it, they can establish a powerful force that can contend against the 7 absolute clans. No. It's said that whoever obtains the Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode will obtain the world. Su Yu's expression also changed. He had read many of the famous Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode among the many materials. Many of the myths and legends recorded in the entire 7 absolute clans were inextricably linked to the Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode. There were even rumors that the Heavenly Legacy Tharch had not died, but was hiding in the Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode to cultivate. He was only waiting for the day to reappear in the world and reclaim his former glory. And there were hundreds of different versions of the rumors about the treasures within. All in all, the Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode had long become a mythical existence. Unfortunately, the Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode had disappeared along with the Heavenly Legacy Tharch. For many years, the descendants had been searching for it. Unexpectedly, many years later, there was suddenly news that the Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode was about to appear. Xie Xiaoye said, It's said that Xia Yan is one of the descendants who inherited the bloodline of the heavenly legacy, the Arch the Most. He used his powerful bloodline to sense that the heavenly legacy cave abode was being controlled by a mysterious force and was about to appear. That's why Xia Yan appeared. Everyone was already excited. But when and where the heavenly legacy cave abode will appear is still unknown. Even Xia Yan is not very sure. He only said that it will appear in the next few years. Hearing this, everyone finally understood why Xie Xiaoye had suggested returning the 2 hostages as soon as possible. Her main goal was to extort a large amount of resources before the heavenly legacy cave abode appeared, quickly replenishing the strength she had lost in the previous encirclement. The Blue Phoenix leader said, "All right, Leader Xiaoye will make the arrangements for the return of the hostages. After all, if the hostages were returned, they would not get much of the resources they extorted. It was better to let Xie Xiaoye worry about it herself." "I have already made arrangements," Xie Xiaoye said. Her true intention was not to ask the other 9 pirates for instructions on how to deal with the 2 hostages. Instead, she was taking the opportunity to tell them about the news of the heavenly legacy cave abode. On the way back to the Xiaoye pirates, Su Yu thought for a moment, then said, "I was wrong. I let go of a very important person like Leader Xiaoye." He had let go of all the hostages that Xie Xiaoye had captured. Among them was a gentle and tranquil young lady, who was very strange. Not only did the white-robed sword god find her familiar, but even Flower Lady Chu Chen found her familiar. She said she had seen her somewhere before, but could not remember where. Even the Pejuan Emperor had cast a puzzled look at her. Now that he thought about it, the ordinary young lady who had left such an impression on so many people was most likely the maid of Xia Yan. "No matter, I have already gotten the information. I will release him sooner or later," Xie Xiaoye said calmly, walking in front. She did not blame Su Yu for this. She looked at the greedy Wolf King and Xue Meng Feiyu and said, "I'll exchange the greedy Wolf King with you within a month, while Xue Meng Feiyu will need a year. During this year, she'll be your maidservant." The greedy Wolf King looked at Xue Meng Feiyu with a pleased expression. As expected, a beautiful woman like Xue Meng Feiyu would not have a good ending in the hands of the pirates. It was inevitable that she would be defiled. Su Yu frowned slightly, saying, "Leader, I want to take the opportunity to train more. I am afraid I will not have the time to look after this hostage." Xie Xiaoye turned her head and said with a faint smile, "No regrets?" Ever since the news that Xue Meng Feiyu had fallen into her hands had spread, no less than 6 pirate leaders had greeted her, hoping to transfer Xue Meng Feiyu to them. Even a path master with extraordinary willpower would not be able to resist such a beautiful woman whose name had shaken the 7 unique civilizations. Su Yu's flat rejection had surprised Xie Xiaoye. "No regrets," Su Yu said calmly. He had seen too many beautiful women, and he already wanted to talk to them face to face. Moreover, he had personally witnessed how heartless Xue Meng Feiyu was. It was difficult for Su Yu to be interested in such a woman, who had a golden appearance but was actually rotten inside. "All the more reason for me to hand her over to you." Xie Xiaoye smiled calmly. With a point of her finger, a speck of light entered the space between Xue Meng Feiyu's brows. Xue Meng Feiyu felt a wave of pain. She held her forehead, her eyes filled with bewilderment. "This is my evil moon realm. Once it is activated, those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will die. Even the thought of defying me will cause you unbearable pain," Xie Xiaoye said calmly. After that, she flicked her finger again, and a speck of light entered the space between Su Yu's brows. "From now on, you have to obey him. You can try to defy him," Xie Xiaoye said. Su Yu was extremely helpless. He did not want it, but he insisted on giving it to him. Xue Meng Feiyu bit her lips, her heart bleeding. Chapter 22:20. When she thought up to here, Xue Meng Feiyu's heart was filled with humiliation, and she felt extremely disgruntled. However, just as she was about to give up, she suddenly felt a sharp pain in the depths of her mind. Shuemeng Fiyu grabbed her head and screamed. Her body was trembling in pain, and her beautiful face was filled with pain. It was only after a long while that the pain subsided, and her pretty face was pale. Seeing her like this, Greedy Wolf King couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Bitch, you're finished! Ha 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 ha!" Shuemeng Fiyu lowered her head and did not dare to think about anything else. She was afraid that she would be tortured again. "This is your first gift for joining my Xiaoya pirate." Xie Xiaoya smiled faintly. "Next, I have another gift for you." Suyu felt bitter in his heart. It was difficult for him to enjoy Xie Xiaoya's gift. "Don't refuse, it's about your injuries." Hearing this, Suyu was slightly startled. "Could it be, I'll give you a heaven's cleansing dust?" Xie Xiaoya said. Suyu's heart palpitated. What did Suyu lack the most? Without a doubt, it was the clear sky dust. He didn't get it from the number 1 peerless family, but he didn't expect to get it from Xie Xiaoya. However, this heaven's pure dust is currently suppressing some kind of evil seal, and the seal is gradually being undone. Once it is undone, the heaven's pure dust will lose its use, so I will hand it over to you. Suyu said excitedly, "Thank you, leader. It's my duty." Xie Xiaoya said, "Come, today I will officially confer you the position of vice leader." Although Xie Xiaoya had already appointed him as the new deputy leader, it was just a formality. He had yet to go through a formal process. They returned to the main ship of the Xiaoya pirate. In a guest hall, the core members of the Xiaoya pirates were gathered. 2 deputy leaders, several branch leaders, and a few unidentified elders. "Everyone, this is your trusted deputy leader. I don't think I need to tell you more about his deeds." Xie Xiaoya sat on the throne and introduced Suyu to everyone with a smile. A round of applause immediately rang out in the hall. Suyu noticed that a few of them had not moved at all. One was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was one of the deputy leaders, Wu Su. The person Suyu wanted to replace was this person. On the other hand, Wu Su would be stripped of his position as the deputy leader and given other arrangements. It would be weird if he was happy at this moment. As for the other elderly men, Suyu was slightly surprised by them. He had heard that Xie Xiaoya had a group of special subordinates while he was with the Xiaoya pirates. They were not very strong, but they were very old. For many years, Xie Xiaoya had relied on them to do some very mysterious things. Xie Xiaoya was also very polite and respectful to them. Their status was not inferior to the deputy chief. "Now, I officially appoint Suyu as the new deputy captain. He will be in charge of the internal missions of the Xiaoya pirate." The overall mission of the Xiaoya pirates was divided into external and internal affairs. Externally, they would plunder, and internally, they would manage the daily affairs of the entire pirate alliance. In terms of importance, the former was obviously more important. However, even though Xie Xiaoya trusted Suyu's intelligence, he had to get used to being a Xiaoya pirate before he could take on more important missions. Therefore, he decided to let Suyu start with the internal affairs. However, as soon as he finished speaking, one of the elders, who had sparse hair and only one blue eye, calmly said, "Chief, I don't object to you recruiting outstanding talents, but isn't it too rash to choose a young man who has no experience and is completely unfamiliar with the Xiaoya pirates to be in charge of the internal affairs?" Xie Xiaoya could ignore the objections of others. However, he had to take their objections seriously. Xie Xiaoya said, "Elders One, you may not know this, but from my understanding of Su Rushu, he is extremely intelligent. Give him some time, and he will be able to easily take charge of the internal affairs." The one-eyed elder nodded. "Chief, we have watched you build the Xiaoya pirates step by step. You have only reached where you are today after many years of training. I hope you will not forget your original intentions and act cautiously. Otherwise, all these years of hard work will go to waste." They turned a deaf ear to Xie Xiaoya's words. Yes, all these years, The few of us elders have worked hard to build such a great foundation for you. Please reconsider, Chief. Please reconsider, Chief. The 4 so-called elders all asked to resign, asking Xie Xiaoye to give up on accepting her fate. Xie Xiaoye's expression was a little ugly. She had already promised that she would not let Su Yu suffer any grievances from the Sea Wolves pirates. But now, biting her teeth, Xie Xiaoye stood her ground and said, Elders 1, there is no need to say anything more. I have made up my mind. Wu Su, I will appoint you as the master of the 3 fleets, in charge of the 3 ships. Wu Su pursed his lips, standing up with a heavy heart. He stepped forward and handed over the deputy chief seal. I will obey the chief's orders. Xie Xiaoye nodded and passed the seal to Su Yu. She said, Congratulations, Deputy Leader Su. Thank you for your guidance, Chief. I will do my best to serve the chief. Sigh. The one-eyed elder suddenly let out a heavy sigh. He bit his old head and said sorrowfully, Prosperity leads to decline, prosperity leads to decline. I have personally watched the Xiaoye pirates develop to this stage, but I have also personally watched them decline. How sad. The other elder stood up, shaking his sleeves. He looked around, his eyes filled with disappointment. Today is the day the calamity begins. The Xiaoye pirates are destined to decline. The other 2 elders also let out long sighs. It was as if the Xiaoye pirates were about to be annihilated after accepting their fate to Su Yu. Xie Xiaoye creased her brows. These 4 old things felt that she had not given them face, so they were making a fuss over nothing. In the entire pirate alliance, only the 4 of them dared to treat her this way. But Xie Xiaoye was very helpless. She could not leave these 4 people. Without them, some things could not be accomplished. Also, I have another announcement, Xie Xiaoye said. I have already promised to give the heaven's pure dust to Deputy Chief Su to heal your body. No. But just as Xie Xiaoye said this, the one-eyed elder objected. The heaven's pure dust's uses are too amazing for words. We might even encounter a seal contaminated with evil energy in the future. How can we let it go to waste? He said forcefully. Displeased, Xie Xiaoye said indifferently, Old One, please don't be unreasonable. We accidentally triggered the evil aura in that seal. It's almost impossible for us to encounter a seal with such powerful evil aura in the future. Furthermore, if we give the heaven's pure dust to Deputy Chief Su, he will be able to recover his abilities. How can you say it is a waste? The one-eyed elder Wen's expression was tense. In this aspect, we have more say than the chief, right? Yes. Please do not interfere with us. Otherwise, if we really encounter a seal contaminated with evil energy one day, don't blame us for being helpless. From their tone, it was as if the Xiaoye pirates would immediately collapse without them. Xie Xiaoye's eyes narrowed. As they had relied on them for a long time, the 4 elders had developed a habit of being arrogant. They had talked back to her in public more than once or twice. It was as if they did not regard her as a threat. To be honest, if not for the fact that she could not find someone to replace them, she would have chased all of them away long ago. My words will not change, Xie Xiaoye said forcefully. The 4 of you, quickly undo that seal. After using it, the heaven's pure dust will belong to Deputy Chief Su. There are no objections. The one-eyed elder one had been humiliated twice by Xie Xiaoye in public. He felt humiliated. He rose with a wave of his sleeve. Apologies, I have not been feeling well recently. I am afraid I have no time to study the seal. Please forgive me, Chief. After saying this, he did not wait for Xie Xiaoye to speak, leaving with his hands behind his back with a gloomy expression. The other 3 elders stood up in unison. The 4 of us elders have our own task. We cannot afford to lose even one of us. Hence, we might not be able to undo the seal during this period of time. The 3 elders left one after another. Xie Xiaoye's pretty eyes were filled with coldness. These 4 old things were simply going too far. She had suppressed her anger for a long time. she said calmly, today's matter ends here. Everyone, please return. The rest of the people left one after another. Only Su Yu remained. He said to Xie Xiaoye apologetically, I have made things difficult for the chief. He had not expected the four old things to have such tempers. Xie Xiaoye sighed as exhaustion flashed across her elegant and beautiful face. It's not your fault. It's not the first time they've talked back to me. Even without the heaven's pure dust incident, they would have caused trouble sooner or later because other matters did not satisfy them. Su Yu thought for a moment. Chief, is the evil energy in the seal bothering you? Although my abilities are average, I have some methods to restrain the evil energy. I might be able to help you. He had the boundless karmic flames and an evil dragon. Dispelling the evil energy should not be a problem. Xie Xiaoye smiled in relief. Thank you. But the problem is not the evil energy. It is how to undo the seal. After thinking for a moment, Xie Xiaoye said, Forget it. You are already the deputy chief. There are some things you have the right to know. The reason why the Xiaoye pirates have developed so quickly is because many years ago, we once robbed a strange mountain. There were many seals formed by special words on the mountain. To undo the seals, we must first translate the words. I have searched for many years before I found 4 experts like Elder One who are proficient in many words. I relied on them to undo the seals and obtain many treasures from the mountain. For example, the teacup you took was one of them. Su Yu felt awkward at the mention of the teacup. It felt like he had been caught red-handed by the owner of the house for stealing something. However, Su Yu was most concerned about something else. He said in surprise, Words? Yes, they are very strange words. I have flipped through the ancient books of many races, but there was no corresponding words. Those 4 Elder One also relied on various attempts to decipher the words one by one. Xie Xiaoye looked at Su Yu with a strange expression and asked, Do you have any ideas? Su Yu stroked his chin and pondered for a moment before saying, I don't have any ideas, but unfortunately, I have some attainments in writing. Chapter 22-21. Really? Xie Xiaoye was a little surprised. When it came to writing, the higher the race, the more secretive they were about it. Hence, the fluidity of writing was very low. Usually, only those who had traveled very far away and were extremely experienced would have some understanding of the writing of other races. The 4 elders had been transported to an 8-star civilization because of an unexpected space ripple. They had spent their entire lives there before coming back. They had only learned some of the foreign languages after coming into contact with many foreign races in the 8-star civilization. Su Yu was so young. It was not easy for him to spend the time to cultivate to this level. How could he still have the heart to travel the world? Xie Xiaoye did not really believe it. Naturally, Su Yu said. Xie Xiaoye thought for a moment, then said, All right, I'll test you on the spot. She waved her slender fingers in the air and drew out 10 very rare words. It would have been difficult for a normal person to guess 1 or 2. But to Su Yu, these 10 words were quite simple. Translate these 10 words into the corresponding common language, Xie Xiaoye said. Su Yu blurted out, Lin, Xiao, Zhu, Tian, Xin, Hun, Fa, Luan, Tian, Chang. Xie Xiaoye opened her mouth in shock, her eyes filled with shock. You actually guessed 5 of them correctly? Unbelievable. You really have some attainments in the language. 5? Su Yu froze for a moment. The correct one should be Lin, Xiao, Zhu, Phil, Xin, Hun, Fa, Luan, Tian, Chang. Su Yu secretly shook his head. Wrong. The 4 elders' attainments were very limited, and they had translated 5 of the words incorrectly. But he did not want to have anything to do with the 4 old men who were taking advantage of their seniority. Hence, even though he knew they had made mistakes, he could not be bothered to correct them. Otherwise, if they found out, they would be unreasonable and argue with Su Yu again. No, they would scold him. With their personalities, they would not allow anyone to question them. Xie Xiaoye's eyes shone, unable to hide her surprise. Haha, I really picked up a treasure. Not only was he powerful and intelligent, but he also had a wide range of knowledge, even having some attainments in the foreign languages. Although he had only answered 5 correctly, far less than the 4 elders, it was not easy for him to do so at his age. Leader, I want to take a look at the seal you mentioned. Maybe I can be of help. Xie Xiaoya nodded in agreement and took out a key in the shape of a small mountain. Take it, but don't act rashly. That seal is extremely powerful. If you're not careful, you might be injured. Yes. Soon, Suyu arrived in front of the strange mountain. The mountain was hundreds of meters tall, and its entire body was covered in mottled scars left behind by battles. A feeling of vicissitudes of life assaulted his face. This mountain had existed for a very long time. Suyu activated Xiao Dai's talent. As expected, he could vaguely see several masses of dark green and even light blue air masses hidden in the mountains. This meant that there were many powerful and extraordinary treasures in this mountain. There was even a deep blue swamp hidden in the depths, flickering. Dark blue, it should be the highest grade treasure he had seen so far. There are many treasures in the mountain. Suyu was secretly surprised. The mysterious sand he had obtained previously was just one of them. At the foot of the mountain, there was a door that could be opened with a key. He discovered that there were dozens of man-made stairs leading to different parts of the mountain. On one of the roads, there was a barrier set up by someone, which was intended to prohibit passage. This should be the place where the evil energy seal was located. He walked along the road to the end, and as expected, he came in front of a stone wall. Colorful seals rapidly flashed on the stone walls. Balls of evil energy that could make one's heart jump were flying back and forth inside the seals. This was because there was a pure and holy sky clean dust at the top of the seal. Otherwise, the evil energy would be even more rampant. No wonder the sky clean dust was used to suppress it. Suyu could easily discover through his transparent eye that there was still a lot of evil energy hidden in the seal. The amount of evil energy stored here was about 10 times that of the wandering evil energy. One could imagine how powerful the evil energy was before this. Even an ordinary path master would find it difficult to approach it. After pondering for a while, Suyu transmitted a message to the evil dragon in the cavern world. Do you need evil energy for your cultivation? The evil dragon, who was in a deep sleep, suddenly woke up and asked in surprise, Of course. Why do you ask? Suyu did not say anything else. He released the evil dragon from the cavern world and said, When I break the seal, you can absorb as much of this evil energy as you can. The evil dragon was stunned, and he looked at the evil energy flowing in the seal. As an evil dragon, he was far more sensitive to evil energy than ordinary people. He could even see the huge amount of evil energy that had yet to appear in the seal. He cried out in surprise, So much evil energy? His face was filled with ecstasy. And it's the purest do disaster evil energy. It seemed like the evil energy was indeed very useful to him. Thank you, my lord. Thank you. The evil dragon was extremely grateful. Suyu nodded, then silently observed the seal on it. He saw words of different sizes appearing on the seal. Each word belonged to a different race. Most of them are the words of the 8th rated races, and one of them is from the 9th rated races. Is it really so difficult to break it? Suyu muttered softly. Xie Xiaoya said that it had taken the 4 Great One Elders hundreds of years just to break half of the words on the seal. Suyu had thought that it would be difficult, but it seemed like it was too easy. Walking forward, Suyu copied all of the words and translated them into common words one by one. It would take 1 or 2 days to translate all of the nearly 10,000 words. While he was translating, in the One Palace, it was the place where the 4 Great One Elders lived and worked. The 4 of them were drinking and chatting. It was obvious that they did not look happy. Especially the one-eyed One Elder, whose face was so gloomy that it looked like it was about to drip water. If possible, he would have strangled Suyu to death. The leader is becoming more and more disrespectful to us. One of the One Elders said angrily. She didn't think about it. All these years, without our help to break the seal on that mountain, how could she have obtained so many treasures and developed the Xiaoya pirates to where they are today? Now, for the sake of a young boy of unknown origin, she has thrown the harsh advice of the 4 great One Elders to the back of her head. This is outrageous. This is outrageous. The 4 One Elders spoke one after another, as if without them, the Xiaoya pirates would not be where they were today. Now, the 4 of us will rest. I want to see who will continue digging without us, and how long the Xiaoya pirates can develop. Only the one-eyed One Elder had a gloomy expression. The leader will yield sooner or later, it is only a matter of time. But that Suyu Humph, just wait and see. Once he understands how important we are to the Xiaoya pirates, he will come and apologize within 3 days. The one-eyed One Elder said coldly, but it is useless even if he kneels and apologizes. Unless he immediately scram from the Xiaoya pirates. They had previously said that it was for the development of the Xiaoya pirates, but now they refused to continue digging for their own selfish reasons, disregarding the overall interests of the Xiaoya pirates. Their words formed a stark contrast. At the end of the day, they were just angry that Xiaoya did not listen to them. Hence, they did not give in. Right, I heard that the Lord will come in a few days. When that time comes, the leader will yield even more, one of the One Elders said. The one-eyed One Elder's eyes flashed. He said in surprise, "You mean that, Lord?" The latter chuckled. "Of course." The one-eyed One Elder was overjoyed. "Ha, even the heavens are helping us. When the time comes, the 4 of us will tell the Lord about what the leader has done all these years. Let's see what the leader has to say." In the mountain, after 2 days of effort, Suyu had successfully translated all of the words into common word. But to undo the seal, just translating them was not enough. He still needed nearly 10,000 words to be rearranged into a spell. Only by relying on the spell could he undo the seal. This was another costly project. Suyu used the speed boost. Under the state of 500 times time, he rearranged the 10,000 words according to the order on the seal. Finally, a day later, he finally managed to arrange the words into a complete spell. Activating the spell, the seal shook violently. Then, starting from the middle, it began to dissipate. At the same time, a shocking evil energy leaked out from within. The evil dragon saw the opportunity and charged forward. The dragon's scales on its body opened up like a mouth, continuously swallowing the evil energy within. In just an hour, the evil dragons had completely absorbed all of the demonic chi hidden within it, including the demonic chi hidden within. The dragon's body had undergone a huge change. Its already black scales became even darker, and its ferocious head became even more ferocious. Its body seemed to be burning with a layer of black flames, which kept tumbling. It was a terrifying sight. This is great. I can finally refine the evil king pearl that I've been dreaming of. The evil dragon laughed heartily. It was extremely pleased. The evil king pearl? It should be something that was only useful to the evil dragon. However, this was the evil dragon's secret. Suyu did not want to delve into it, so he sent it back to the cavern world. He looked at the exposed stone wall in front of him. A fierce fighting spirit emanated from the stone wall. Using his transparent eyes, he saw 2 corpses in their battle stances. One of the corpses was filled with evil energy. The other was holding a decent doctrine artifact fairy embryo. Its grade was almost the same as the sand that Suyu had obtained before. What kind of mountain is this? Suyu was secretly surprised. He looked around and found that similar scenes were common in the mountains. They seemed to be in the middle of a war. Then, for some unknown reason, they all suddenly died. Their corpses did not even have time to fall before they were all sealed in the mountain and turned into fossils. Although he was surprised, Suyu did not want to explore this mountain. Since this mountain was Xiaoya's secret, She certainly did not want outsiders to study it too deeply. Although she trusted him, it was better to stay away from taboos that should not be violated. Chapter 22:22. He grabbed the sky pure dust embedded in the stone wall and took it away. As soon as Zhang Xian held it in his hand, he felt a wave of holiness wash over him, and his injuries were visibly recovering. The heaven's pure dust is really magical. Su Yu was secretly delighted. He only needed to use the heaven's pure dust to recuperate for a while, and his injuries would be completely healed. With the clean heaven dust in his hand, Su Yu immediately returned to the deputy leader's mansion that belonged to him. There was an excellent cultivation room in the mansion, and one didn't have to worry about people or aura leaking out while cultivating inside. In the training room, Su Yu immediately placed the heaven pure dust in his mouth. All of a sudden, a boiling warm current flowed out of the sky pure dust and flowed toward Su Yu's limbs and bones. When Xiao Chen looked within himself, he could see a dazzling snow-white qi circulating within his body, filling it up. All of a sudden, Su Yu's exhausted body felt unusually warm and comfortable. It was like a person who had been ill for a long time finally regaining health. Su Yu couldn't help but let out a soft moan. As time passed, the feeling of weakness in Xiao Chen's body gradually faded. His exhausted body slowly recovered. A day later, Su Yu stood up. He only felt that his entire body was filled with great power. From now on, he wouldn't have to worry about running out of Daelord's strength when he fought with others. All this hard work was worth it. How many risks had Su Yu taken in order to obtain this pure sky dust? In the end, he succeeded. Now, I just need to find out the whereabouts of the sinful lady palace from the ancient well of the number 1 peerless family, Su Yu muttered. However, he still did not know why the golden-eyed Langjun wanted Su Yu to help them as a spy. With golden-eyed Langjun's shrewdness, his ambition might be rather great. Clang! Right at this moment the door to the mansion was kicked open. Immediately after that, the servants in the mansion began to cry out in panic and fear. Su Yu creased his brows. Who would dare barge into the deputy leader's mansion? When Xiao Chen left the secret room to take a look, he saw 4 old fellows standing in the middle of the courtyard with their noses facing the sky, looking extremely condescending. Su Yu was disgusted. He did not have a good impression of these 4 people. His abilities were mediocre, but he took advantage of his seniority and liked to point fingers at others. It was hard for anyone to have a good impression of him. And now, he had barged into his mansion. Did they think he was a pushover? It turned out that even though 3 days had passed, Su Yu hadn't gone to kowtow and apologize as they had expected. This made the one-eyed elder one feel very embarrassed, so he took the initiative to visit. Su Yu clasped his hands behind his back and asked calmly, "Since the 4 of you have come to visit, do you have anything to teach me?" The 4 elder one looked over. The one-eyed elder one had a cold expression on his face as he lectured. "How can you be so rude? How should I address you?" They had kicked down the door of Su Yu's mansion without saying a word. They had the attitude of looking for trouble, yet they still expected Su Yu to be polite? Seriously, they take themselves too seriously. "Oh, you 4 old things. Why are you looking for me?" Su Yu added another form of address. Being called an old thing, the 4 elders immediately blew their beards and glared at him. As a pirate in Xiaoya, which pirate would not be respectful to the 4 of them? Only Su Yu dared to address them in such a manner in front of them. It was obvious that he did not take the 4 of them seriously. Before they had come here, they had assumed that Su Yu would feel guilty or at least be polite. But who knew, the one-eyed elder one was furious. He fiercely struck the ground with his walking stick, angrily scolding, "Young man! The 4 of us came here with good intentions to teach you a lesson, but you dare to humiliate us like this." Su Yu shook his head. He did not want to argue with them pointlessly. Teach him? Teach what? Was it martial arts? Or was it the literary skills that they were so proud of? Or were they here to teach him how to be a person? In reality, they were here to teach him a lesson, not to teach him. But it was a pity that Su Yu did not show his weak side as they had hoped. "The four of you will probably need to study for a long time to teach me," Su Yu said honestly. The only thing that they were worth teaching was their literary skills. But their literary skills could not even compare to the tip of the iceberg. How could they have the right to teach Su Yu? What a joke! Young man, don't think that you can be arrogant just because you accidentally captured the greedy Wolf King. The one-eyed elder one said angrily, "When we were roaming the world, you were not even born." He shook his sleeves, taking out a written contract and tossing it to Su Yu. "If you want to live in harmony with the four of us, you will have to abide by the following conditions. Otherwise, humph." Su Yu swept his gaze across the contract, stopping it in its tracks. There were 3 conditions on it. First, he had to report internal affairs to the 4 elders. Second, he had to prioritize the tasks given to him by the 4 elders. Third, he had to listen to all of their orders. Su Yu felt like laughing after reading it. Even the leader, Xie Xiaoye, would not dare set up such a contract for her deputy leader? Rather than calling it a contract, it was more like a slave contract. An agreement to make Su Yu their slave. "Have you finished reading it? Sign it after reading it." The 4 elders glared at him. They believed in Su Yu's choice. If he insisted on going against the 4 elders, Su Yu would not be able to do anything in the Xiaoye pirates, especially internal affairs. Many of the people there were already subordinates of the 4 elders. Without their permission, Su Yu, as the deputy leader, might not be able to command them. Su Yu did not say a word, crushing the entire contract and tossing it back. Large pieces of paper flew into the air, covering their white hair. The 4 elders froze, unable to restrain their anger. The one-eyed elder fiercely tapped his crutch angrily, saying, "You will regret this. Leave." In their eyes, Su Yu was just a hot-blooded brat who did not know his limits. Soon, he would realize that without the 4 of them, he could not do anything on the Xiaoye pirates. "Leave? Did I allow you to leave?" But just as they turned, Su Yu's cold voice came from behind them. The one-eyed elder turned his head, his eyes filled with anger. "Why, Deputy Leader Su, do you want us to stay?" He was extremely furious. "I wouldn't go so far as to make you stay. My mansion cannot accommodate 4 disrespectful old things like you." Su Yu calmly said, "I just want you to leave the way you came." The one-eyed elder had yet to react when Su Yu suddenly appeared. The 4 elders only had the cultivation bases of 5 crown martial artists. They could not even dodge in time. The one-eyed elder was the first to be slapped to the ground by Su Yu, followed by the other 3 elders. You dare to attack us?" The one-eyed elder's face was burning hot. He said in disbelief. Being on the Xiaoye pirates, the 4 of them were supreme existences. Even the leader did not dare attack them. A mere deputy leader actually dared to attack them? Attack? "No, I am only asking you to get out," Su Yu calmly said. "Didn't you come in by kicking the door open? I will kick you out." After which, 4 consecutive kicks sent all of them flying. 4 pathetic cries could be heard as the 4 of them flew through the air, landing outside the mansion one after another, letting out cries of pain. "From today onwards, you are not allowed to take even half a step into my mansion. If not, the next time I will not just ask you to get out," Su Yu calmly said. He hated these 4 old things to the core. The servants in the mansion looked at Su Yu as if they were looking at a monster. It was hard to imagine that among the Xiaoye pirates, there would be someone who dared to publicly beat up the 4 elders. Could it be that he was not afraid of death? When the 4 elders were enraged, no one in the Xiaoye pirates dared to do anything. Even Xie Xiaoye had no choice but to ignore them. Their experience told them that Su Yu was in deep trouble. The 4 elders were about to explode in anger at being treated this way. Preposterous! Preposterous! The one-eyed elder was so angry that his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. the cane in his hand tapping the ground crazily. Let's go. Let's go ask the leader what she chose. However, Xie Xiaoye, who had received the news first, went into seclusion. This was to avoid the four elders. She had a headache. Sigh, Su Rushu has poked a hornet's nest. These four old fellows are going to cause trouble for a few more days. Su Rushu might be in some trouble. Actually, Su Yu's trouble was not small. The second peerless family. When the defeated Pejuan emperor returned to the second peerless family's mansion, he was surprised to see an inconspicuous horse parked outside the mansion. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary horse. However, as a path master and the master of the second peerless family, the Pejuan emperor's eyesight was extraordinary. He immediately recognized that the horse was extraordinary. There were 3 tufts of silver-white hair on its back. Each of its 4 hooves was covered with a golden horseshoe. The horse's eyes were filled with human-like wisdom and calmness. Stepping on the moon with silver hair, leaving gold in the air, the Pejuan emperor muttered the popular legend of the 7 unique civilizations, his heart thumping. This is the gold and silver horse. The gold and silver horse was said to be the offspring of an accidental union between a Wanzong beast and a divine horse of the highest grade. Many families had thought of letting the Wanzong beast mate with other species to give birth to a new species that had the ability to travel through space. However, all of them had failed. For some unknown reason, the new species that were born were either innately dead or died within a few days. The longest record was living for half a month before dying mysteriously. Only the gold and silver horse was a wild horse that was born by accident. When it was discovered, it was traveling through the void. A few Daolords had to use many methods before they were able to capture him. It was rumored that this horse had the same ability as the Wanzong beast. It could travel through space at will without any restrictions. However, what really moved the Pejuan emperor was not the horse, but the horse's owner. The horse was so fierce that no one could ride it. Even Xia Donglai of the 7th peerless family refused to let the horse ride it. It would rather go on a hunger strike than allow anyone to ride it. Countless almighties had tried, but all of them had failed. Only one person had succeeded. He was the Heaven's Heart Iron Hunter. The Heaven's Heart Iron Hunter was not a member of the 7 unique civilizations. Chapter 22-23. As soon as she appeared, she used the identity of the Heartless Iron Constable to capture a Dao Master criminal who had fled to this place with hands stained with blood, and brought him to justice. At that time, she was only a half-step Dao Master, and had not even achieved Daoification, but she still beat the Dao Master half to death and captured him. That battle took place in the sky above the 7 absolute civilizations, so all the Dao Masters of the 7 absolute civilizations witnessed it with their own eyes. Her name completely shook the entire 7 absolute civilizations. The Heartless Iron Constable was a constable who claimed to sweep away all injustice in the world and swore to build a world of light. No one knew which force she came from. The only thing they knew was that she had indeed been capturing criminals everywhere for the past 100 years. Over the past 30 years, he had personally captured 3 Daolord-level sinners. What was even more shocking was that it was said that when she was capturing a Dao Master who had committed heinous crimes in another 7-star civilization, she was stopped by the Master of Civilization. In the end, she injured the Master of Civilization and forcibly captured him. No matter how weak the Master of 7-star civilizations was, he was still at the level of any of the 7 absolute families, or even stronger. However, the Heartless Iron Constable was simply invincible. She directly injured the Master of Civilization and forcibly took him away. Her strength could not be said to be not terrifying. As for the wild gold and silver horse, it was strange that no one was willing to accept, but when faced with the Heartless Iron Constable, it prostrated in front of her and acknowledged her as its master. How many people were shocked by this scene? In the end, Xia Donglai still exchanged the gold and silver horse with the Heartless Iron Constable. For many years, the heartless Iron Constable's whereabouts were uncertain, capturing criminals everywhere. Now, her mount actually appeared in front of his mansion. How could defeating Army's emperor not be surprised? He quickly walked inside. In the guest hall, several clan elders were courteously receiving a woman dressed in plain white clothes and wearing a veil. Her beautiful black hair was coiled into a ponytail and tied up simply. Her eyes were sharp and deep, as if they could see through everything in the world. Her delicate eyebrows were slightly raised, giving people a feeling of heroic spirit. At this moment she was sitting quietly. She did not speak. The tea beside her had been cold for a long time, but she had not drunk a single drop. Heartless Iron Constable. Defeating Army's emperor smiled and took the initiative to greet her. He had long admired such a legendary woman. Now that he was able to see him in person, he felt rather fortunate. "You're the Army Destroyer Emperor?" The woman's voice was chilly and straightforward, and it revealed deep decisiveness. "That's right." Heartless Iron Constable nodded and said, "I'm here for Xue Meng Fei Yu." Emperor Defeating Army didn't really understand the reason behind it. Xue Meng Fei Yu, a member of the 6th Peerless family, had been captured. This was considered a big deal in the 7th Peerless civilization, but to the heartless Iron Hunters who captured all criminals in the world, it was actually an insignificant matter. Why would she be alarmed? "It was Xia Donglai who asked me to investigate this case," Heartless Iron Arrester said calmly. "Xia Donglai?" Emperor Pajuan understood, but at the same time, he didn't. Because of the gold and silver horses, the Heartless Iron Catcher and the 7th Peerless family had some connections. Therefore, they were able to invite the Heartless Iron Catcher to help them. However, why would Xia Donglai worry about Xue Meng Feiyu from the 6th Peerless clan? How could he know that Xue Meng Feiyu was actually Xia Donglai's son, Xia Rukan's woman? Of course, Xia Donglai had to worry about Xue Meng Feiyu. However, it would be great if the legendary Heartless Iron Arrester was willing to help them personally. Until now, there had never been a person that she couldn't save. If she could save Xue Meng Feiyu, she could certainly save the greedy Wolf King. The 2nd Peerless family is willing to cooperate with the Heartless Iron Arrester. Everyone here can listen to the Heartless Iron Arrester's orders. No need. Heartless Iron Arrester's eyes were cold. "Bring me to 2 places. First, the stargazing platform. Second, the private room where the incident took place." "All right." Not long after, at the stargazing platform, several months had passed since the last time Su Yu had deceived everyone here. Later, people came up one after another, and there were no longer any traces left. Emperor Defeating Army didn't really understand why Heartless Iron Arrester had come here. Heartless Iron Arrester didn't say a word, and her eyes swept around. Suddenly, she stopped in front of a stone and gently flipped it over, revealing a fragment the size of a fingernail. It was the fragment of flesh left behind when Su Yu killed the human demon. After several months of drying, it had turned into dried meat. Emperor Defeating Army was secretly surprised. What powerful eyesight! How could she discover this? Heartless Iron Arrester held the dried meat in her hand, and her eyes were deep. "Are you saying that he invited someone and pretended to be killed by him in order to win your trust?" "That's right," Emperor Defeating Army said with certainty. "Many people saw it that day." "Why? Is there a hidden story?" Shaking her head, Heartless Iron Arrester said, "There is no hidden story. It's just that this person's strength is terrifying. He could kill a Path Master with just his body." Hearing this, Emperor Defeating Army and the others were all shocked. That human demon didn't show the strength of a Path Master. Is there a misunderstanding? Is there really a Path Master in this world who would be willing to be killed by Su Rushu? Even if you offered more benefits, no Path Master would be willing to do so, right? Heartless Iron Arrester said calmly, "This is the second aspect of his strength. His soul power must be unbelievably strong, as it could control a Path Master's body. As far as I know, only the soul race, which is a ninth-class race, can split their soul into two independent bodies. If this person isn't a soul race, then he must be a strong man with a soul. Besides, this person is very good at scheming, Heartless Iron Arrester said. It's not a big deal for a person to deceive one person, but if he can deceive everyone, it means that he is confident, powerful, and extremely scheming. If Suyu was here, he would also be shocked. Heartless Iron Arrester was able to see through Suyu's strength with just a piece of dried meat. Emperor Defeating Army couldn't help but gasp in amazement when he heard this. He thought that he had seen through Suyu, but after hearing Heartless Iron Arrester's words, he realized that Suyu was still hiding a lot. After putting away the dried meat, Heartless Iron Arrester said calmly, "Next place." In the private room, because of the huge incident, the whole restaurant was sealed by the second peerless family, and no one entered or left. Hence, the scene was well preserved. Heartless Iron Arrester looked at the remaining pieces of ice on the ground, which still hadn't melted. After a moment, she said, "I roughly understand. Thank you for your help, Emperor Defeating Army." "It's my duty," Emperor Defeating Army said. "I have a presumptuous request. I hope that when Heartless Iron Arrester rescues Xue Mengfeiyu, you can bring my son back with you." "Sure," Heartless Iron Arrester replied expressionlessly. Emperor Defeating Army was grateful, so he took out a storage ring, which contained many resources. Heartless Iron Arrester didn't even look at it, as she said, "I only act for the world's justice, and I don't ask for anything in return. This is my path, so please don't hinder my cultivation." Seeking justice for the world was the Heartless Iron Arrester's self-cultivation. Emperor Defeating Army sighed inwardly. He couldn't believe that such a righteous person existed in the world. "It's my fault." Emperor Defeating Army took back the ring and said, "Thank you, Heartless Iron Arrester." "All right." Heartless Iron Arrester turned around, and before she left, she said with deep meaning, "If you save your son and Xue Mengfeiyu at the same time, I hope that you can control him and don't let him do anything rash." She glanced at the remaining ice with the corner of her eyes. She had already deduced what happened that day. Combined with Xia Donglai's request to save Xue Mengfeiyu, she was even more certain. That day, Xue Mengfeiyu must have betrayed Greedy Wolf King and subdued him first, which gave Su Rushu an opportunity. While Emperor Defeating Army was still confused, Heartless Iron Arrester jumped onto the gold and silver horse downstairs. The gold and silver horse neighed, and a powerful black light shot out from its eyes, creating a pitch-black hole in the space before it jumped into it. Emperor Defeating Army watched as it left and let out a deep breath. Heartless Iron Arrester, never fail. Don't worry now. At the same time, Xiaoya Pirate. Recently, a very special guest had arrived. Xiaoya, who was in seclusion, suddenly woke up. She calculated with her fingers and immediately left the seclusion room for the guest hall. In the guest hall, 4 elders were accompanying a lady in white with smiles on their faces. Her looks were not bad, her figure was slim, and her entire body gave off an unfathomable aura. When Xiaoya saw her, she could not help but reveal a trace of fear. This lady's strength was definitely not weaker than Xiaoya's Tao Master, and not just any ordinary Tao Master. However, this Tao Master's eyes would occasionally flash with a dull look, which was not normal. However, at other times, she would regain her shrewdness and depth. What made Xiaoya's heart sink was that the 4 elders were shamelessly complaining to this person. "Granny Meng, you must help us." The one-eyed elder, who was usually arrogant, had a tearful look on his face as he complained to the white-robed Tao Master. "Leader, for an outsider, you actually disregarded the contributions we have made to the Xiaoya pirates over the years. You let him climb all over us and even allowed him to beat us up." Actually, the white-robed Tao Master was not old, probably less than 1,000 years old. The 4 elders were at least 10,000 years old. However, they were calling the white-robed Tao Master Granny instead. That's right, Granny Meng, look at our injuries. How disappointing. We've been working hard for the Xiaoya pirates for so many years, and yet we end up being treated like this. The white-robed Dao master frowned slightly. Something like this actually happened? She turned to look at Xiaoya, who had just arrived, and said unhappily, Xiaoya, how could you allow an outsider to act so recklessly? Xiaoya smiled bitterly in her heart. To be honest, she did not know how this white-robed Dao master came. According to the Four Elders, when they were studying the seal on that mountain, a Wanzong beast that had lost its way suddenly appeared nearby without any warning. Furthermore, a person fell from the Wanzong beast's body. That person was the white-robed Dao master in front of her, who called herself Meng Qir. Chapter 22-24. When they first arrived, Xiaoya fought with him. In the end, not only was he unable to do anything to the other party, he was even suppressed by this Meng Qir. This was because Meng Qir did not have a Dao artifact on her. If Xiaoya used her Dao weapon, she would definitely lose. When she first arrived, this Meng Qir's mind was not very clear. She did not even remember where she came from. She only knew her own name and her father. She had completely forgotten everything else. From then on, she treated the Little Moon Pirates as her home. Every day, he would stay at the bow of the ship, relying on his powerful cultivation to recover his consciousness. His memory was recovering bit by bit, and he had already recovered most of it. But he still couldn't remember where he came from. Therefore, she had to go out for 3 years to search for clues every time, and it had been going on for several decades now. Today was the day he was supposed to come back. His words were logical and precise. He should have regained some of his consciousness. Xiaoya smiled wryly and said, Sister Qir, please listen to my explanation. It was the four of them who made things difficult for us first. One-eyed Elder One immediately interrupted her. To prevent her from revealing the truth, he said, we did make things difficult, but did we do anything? No way, right? But what about that Su guy? Without saying a word, you severely injured the four of us, and you didn't even give us any punishment. Grandma Meng, you must seek justice for us. Meng Qir stared at Xiaoya and said, I only want to ask you, did that so-called vice leader Su beat them up? Xiaoya was vexed and could only reply, yes. That's right. Meng Qir earnestly instructed, it wasn't easy for you to establish the Little Moon Pirates. You should be well aware of the role of these 4 old men. To treat such meritorious subjects, aren't you afraid of disappointing the hearts of the other pirates? Xiaoya was speechless. The entire Xiaoya pirates would probably be very happy to see the 4 elders beaten up. With what the 4 of them had done in the Little Moon pirate world, there were many people who wanted to beat them up. Suyu had only done what everyone else wanted to do, but didn't dare to do. Listen to me. Xiaoya wanted to explain, but Meng Qir waved her hand. There's no need to explain. Immediately bring the 4 elders to find the deputy leader, and have him give them an explanation. Hearing this, the 4 elders laughed in their hearts. Now, let's see what that guy with the surname Su will do. Did he think that he could disrespect them just because the leader admired him? Later on, not only would they be stripped of their position as pirates, they would also suffer 10 times the injuries they had suffered. Xiaoya's heart sank when she saw their gazes. However, it was impossible for her to let the 4 of them have their way. She had said that she would not let Su Yu suffer the same grievances as he had suffered in the Sea Wolves Pirates. This was her promise to Su Yu. All right, Xiaoya said. However, the one-eyed Elder One said, Grandma Meng, you should go too. He was very worried that without Meng Qir holding the fort, Xiaoya would pretend to agree but oppose him in secret and punish Su Yu without any pain. Therefore, he dragged Meng Qir along. Meng Qir wanted to refuse because this was the internal affairs of the Xiaoya pirates. She did not want to interfere too much. But on second thought, the 4 elders couldn't suppress the situation, so he said, All right, but I will only watch from the side and won't make a move. Thank you, Grandma Meng, One-Eyed Elder One said gratefully. What they wanted was Meng Ku'er's presence. Xie Xiaoye secretly hated these 4 old fellows. She quickly calculated in her heart. No matter what, even if she had to fight with Meng Ku'er again, she could not expel Su Yu. However, it was inevitable that Su Yu would receive some punishment and put on an act. Who asked the 4 Wen elders to find a character that even she was wary of. Very quickly, the group arrived in front of Su Yu's mansion. One-Eyed Elder One turned his gaze, saying, Grandma Meng, please let us negotiate with Deputy Leader Su ourselves. He is still young, and as an older generation, we are willing to forgive his mistake. As long as he is honest and admits his mistakes, there is no need to pursue this matter. To this, Meng Ku'er nodded her head in agreement, gratified. It is the Xiaoye pirate's fortune that you can think this way. Xie Xiaoye creased her brows. She did not think that these 4 old things would be so magnanimous. However, it would be best if Su Yu could settle it by himself before she made an official appearance. The 4 Wen elders turned around and walked toward the mansion. The moment they turned around, the One-Eyed Elder Wen's blue eyes revealed a deep coldness. Forgive Su Yu? Dream on. His intentions for entering the mansion were simple. He wanted to create trouble and force Su Yu to be angry so that he could strike again. Xie Xiaoye would not be lenient toward someone who refused to repent and beat them up twice. With such a goal in mind, the 4 of them entered the mansion for the second time. In the backyard, Su Yu was quietly comprehending the evil dragon scripture, hoping to bring his heavenly dragon body to the next level. As he was comprehending, Xuemeng Feiyu walked over with her head lowered. She said respectfully, Deputy Leader Su, the 4 Wen elders are here again. Xuemeng Feiyu had already gotten used to her identity as a maid. Su Yu didn't do anything improper to her as she had imagined. Instead, he just ordered her around like a maid. This allowed Xuemeng Feiyu to heave a sigh of relief. Hence, she behaved even more obediently, afraid that Su Yu would change his mind in a fit of anger. Su Yu stopped comprehending, a cold light flickering in his eyes. He had already warned them not to come to his mansion. With a flash of his figure, he immediately appeared in the front yard. He saw the 4 Wen elders pointing around in the yard with their noses in the air, ordering their servants to prepare the best food and wine. Even after Su Yu had appeared, they were still extremely calm, ordering their servants around. One of the servants was too slow, and he was angrily scolded by one of the Wen elders. They were clearly treating this place as their own mansion. What do the 4 of you want to teach me this time? Su Yu said indifferently. There was no smile on his face, and his tone was extremely cold. It was obvious that Su Yu was not friendly. But the 4 Wen elders did not seem to notice it. The One-Eyed Wen elder sat down and shouted, Kneel down, kowtow, and apologize to us. Su Yu was amused. Even though they were old, they were not very shrewd. They wanted to make him angry, but they were using such a crude trick. Anyone with the slightest bit of shrewdness would think about whether the 4 Wen elders were plotting something. But even though he knew that they were trying to provoke him, Su Yu was still angry. So what if he was angry? What could they do to him? Kowtow? How many do you need to kowtow? Not many. Just 1,000, the One-Eyed Wen elder said indifferently. Even if Su Yu really kowtowed, it would be useless even if he kowtowed 10,000 times. They would never forgive him. 1,000, right? Sure. As you wish. Su Yu's wine-red glow flashed, and a light barrier appeared, trapping the 4 of them within it. His gaze was cold. If they wanted to make him angry, then let them have their way. The 4 Wen elders were calm and composed. Was Su Yu going to attack them next? At most, he would just injure them. Would he dare threaten their lives? The more heavily injured they were, the better the effect. Now, if none of you kowtow to me 1,000 times, I can consider letting you leave. If you don't, then don't even think about leaving my mansion, Su Yu calmly said. The 4 old men were already at odds with Suyu. Even though their abilities were average, if they wanted to ruin Suyu's plans, they could use their connections within the Xiaoya pirates to do so. To prevent any mishaps, it was best to destroy them. Anyway, with Suyu's knowledge of words, Xiaoya did not care about their lives. Their deaths would be in vain. The 4 pitiful One Elders had no idea that they had forced themselves into a dead end. The one-eyed One Elder let out a cold laugh. "Ignorant child, you want us to kneel?" The other One Elder said righteously, "We would rather die than kneel." What they wanted was a conflict with Suyu. However, Elder One had just finished speaking when Suyu casually tapped the space between his eyebrows. With a creak, this One Elder fell to the ground, his soul and body destroyed at the same time. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the smiling one-eyed One Elder and the other 2 elders turned stiff. They looked at the dead One Elder without blinking, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Suyu really dared to kill them? Did he not know what this meant? They were the only ones who could undo the words on the seal. "I think the 3 of you would rather die than kneel, right?" Suyu calmly said. The one-eyed elder's body trembled, the arrogance on his face disappearing, replaced by deep fear. With a thud, he knelt on the ground and started kowtowing. "Deputy Leader Su, please spare our lives." The other 2 One Elders also knelt and kowtowed. They were used to being arrogant, knowing that no one among the Xiaoya pirates dared to do anything to them. Suyu was the only one who didn't care about their lives at all, which was why he had scared them. Thump, 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 Suyu counted them one by one. By the time he reached 1,000, the 3 of them were already bleeding. "At least you know what's good for you." Suyu had said that if they were willing to kowtow 1,000 times, he would let them go. He was a man of his word. "Scram!" Suyu lightly shouted, sending the 3 of them flying with a kick. This time, he had used a lot of strength, breaking all the bones in their bodies to teach them an unforgettable lesson. Crack! The 3 of them landed outside the yard, 2 of the One Elders fainting. Only the one-eyed One Elder was still conscious, but his body was in so much pain that he would rather have fainted. He could not help but squeal like a pig being slaughtered. Meng Qir's expression was cold as she glared at Xiaoya. "Do you still want to explain?" Xiaoya was speechless. She secretly blamed Suyu for his carelessness. Could he not see that the 4 One Elders were plotting something? He had actually injured them once again. Now, even if she wanted to plead for Suyu, it would be difficult. Meng Qir squatted down, using the power of a Path Master to heal the 3 of them. The other 2 One Elders also woke up, their faces pale. Once awake, the 3 of them hugged each other and cried, "Grandma Meng, please seek justice for us." Deputy Leader Su's nature is hard to change. We tried to persuade him with kind words, hoping that he would restrain himself. In the end, not only did he force us to kowtow 1,000 times, he even severely injured us. The one-eyed One Elder hated Suyu to the core. He actually dared to force them to kneel and apologize? Chapter 22-25. Hearing that, Meng Qir's face turned cold. "Xiaoya, do as you see fit." Xiaoya was helpless. Just as she was about to say something, Suyu, who had sensed the commotion outside, walked out. He already knew that the 4 Elders One had come prepared. He wanted to see what kind of people the 4 Elders One could invite. However, standing at the entrance of the mansion, he looked out. When his gaze fell on Meng Qir, he could no longer look away. At the same time, his heart sank. Meng Qir. How could he forget? She had caught him in the body of a Luoho, and he had almost been transformed by her. Fortunately, Suyu had used all his strength and finally succeeded in confusing her memory. Now that he saw her again, and her eyes were clear, she must have regained her consciousness. Thinking of this, Suyu's heart was heavy. Did he have to expose the sword every day? He did not want to do so in front of Xiaoya. "Father!" However, what caught Suyu off guard was that after staring at him for a while, Meng Qir suddenly cried out in surprise. Her white shadow blurred, and she threw herself into Su Yu's arms. Su Yu was stunned, at a loss. She had not regained her memory and still thought of him as her father? Meng Qir had often been beaten by her father when she was young, which had left a psychological scar. Therefore, Su Yu's beating had confused Meng Qir, and she had mistakenly thought that Su Yu was her father. He was stunned, and so were Xie Xiaoye and the three elders. What did she call Su Rushu? Father? After Xie Xiaoye became the leader of the pirates, she had seen and heard many strange stories. But a powerful path master who had cultivated for tens of thousands of years had recognized a young man who was only 100 years old as her father. She found it hard to believe such a ridiculous thing had happened in front of her. Father! I've finally found you. Qir missed you so much. She kept rubbing against Su Yu's arms, her eyes filled with tears. Su Yu's mouth twitched. He had really picked up a big daughter. However, Su Yu did not dare to tell her the truth. This woman was extremely powerful. Not only had the three path masters of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce failed to capture her, but they had also been injured by her. It was clear how powerful she was. If he explained everything clearly and made her recall everything that had happened in the past, Su Yu felt that he wouldn't be far from death. Cough cough, that, good daughter, father has been looking for you for a long time. Su Yu pried her hand away, coughed dryly, and became Meng Qir's father with a straight face. Looking at the dumbfounded Xie Xiaoye, Su Yu smiled awkwardly. Let me introduce you. This is my daughter, Meng Qir. It seems like you already know each other. Xie Xiaoye nodded blankly and laughed dryly. I know him. Meng Qir recovered from her surprise and looked at old Wen's group of four, frowning. Father, why did you come into conflict with my 4 grandsons? Grandson? Su Yu was stunned. What kind of messy relationship is this? After a moment of hesitation, she told him everything that had happened. After listening, Meng Qir angrily turned around and kicked each of them. 3 bastards, do you have eyes? Is this how you treat my father? Apologize. The 3 old one had already lost their ability to think after witnessing such an absurd scene. Sorry, Deputy Leader Su. What did you call him? Meng Qir glared at them. Impudent things. Quickly call him grandfather. Grandfather? Xie Xiaoye, who was at the side, almost laughed out loud. The 4 old ones sucked up to Meng Qir and volunteered to be her grandsons. Now, they had to call Su Rushu grandfather. The one-eyed old Wen's eyes widened. Grandfather? Bastard! Why aren't you greeting him? Meng Qir glared at them. The 3 of them looked at each other, their faces pained as if they had eaten a bowl of flies. They lowered their heads and said, Grandfather! Su Yu could not help but laugh. These 3 old fellows would never have dreamed that they would not be able to suck up to Su Yu, but instead have to call him grandfather? 3 good great-great-grandchildren. Su Yu smiled faintly. Xie Xiaoye looked inside the mansion and said, Where's the last one? Dead. Su Yu still had a calm smile on his face as he casually said. Hearing this, Xie Xiaoye's expression changed. Dead? The 4 old one each had their own specialties. With one dead, who could break the seal in the mountain? Leader, do not worry too much. If there is a need, I can help you translate the words, Su Yu said. Xie Xiaoye's eyes were filled with sadness and complexity. It was easy to say. Although Su Yu had some attainments, he was still lacking compared to the 4 old one. He could not replace any one of them. But on account of Meng Qir, she could not get angry. Forget it, I'll find someone else. Su Yu shrugged. All right, but I suggest you chase these 3 old things away first. Leaving them on the Xiaoye pirates will be trouble sooner or later. With their selfish nature, if the Xiaoye pirates were to be in trouble one day, they would be the first to betray the Xiaoye pirates. There was no doubt about that. Xie Xiaoye was already unhappy that Su Yu had killed a precious old one. Chasing him away. Xie Xiaoye suspected that Su Yu was deliberately making things difficult for her. She said, Deputy Leader Su, if we chase them away, Who will break the words on the seal in the future? Just you? Su Yu said, Of course, I alone am enough. Xie Xiaoye wanted to laugh. Just based on your half-baked attainments? She said with a hint of anger. All right, then why don't you tell me how many words you've deciphered when you went to the mountain? Given how rare those words were, Su Yu being able to decipher even one was already impressive. Decipher a few? That was impossible. Su Yu thought for a moment. I didn't count carefully, but there should be no less than 10,000. 10,000? Xie Xiaoye really felt that the current Su Yu was a little unreasonable. She thought to herself, why don't you say that you have already completely removed the seal? In any case, I have completely broken the evil energy seal. Xie Xiaoye was secretly amused. He really said that. But then she thought about it. Given Su Yu's performance in the second most powerful family, would he be someone who would say such meaningless words? She said, Wait a moment, I'll be back soon. With a flash of her figure, Xie Xiaoye disappeared. After a while, she returned with a face full of shock. She had been to the mountain. That seal had been completely broken. How did you do it? Xie Xiaoye looked at Su Yu in shock, as if she was looking at a huge treasure house that had never been excavated. Su Yu said, Leader, you can think of it as a guess. Guess? Guessing all 10,000 words? She turned her gaze and took out the 10 words that she had used to test Su Yu. Among them, there were 5 words that the 4 elders' guesses were wrong all along? Su Yu nodded. You can say that. Xie Xiaoye gasped. It was true. She could not believe that Su Yu was so young. How did he know all the words of the 10,000 clans? Objectively speaking, this was impossible. Deputy Leader Su, you really surprised me. Xie Xiaoye patted Su Yu's shoulder, her heart brimming with joy. In just 3 days, Su Yu had done something that the 4 elders might not have been able to do in decades. Such an earth-shattering talent had become her subordinate. Xie Xiaoye felt as if she had hit the jackpot. Humph! Meng Kuo let out a light grunt, staring at Xie Xiaoye with a slightly unfriendly gaze. I've been paying attention for a long time. How can you continue to call him deputy leader? Xie Xiaoye was slightly stunned, then became embarrassed. She and Meng Kuo were sisters, and Su Yu was Meng Kuo's father. In that case, didn't she have to call Su Yu uncle? Su Yu also sensed that something was wrong. He grinned. Great, he had another big niece. Why? Do you want to take advantage of my seniority? Meng Kuo glared at him. If she called Su Yu a junior, then wouldn't Meng Kuo be the junior of her junior? Xie Xiaoye had no choice but to say, Uncle. Uncle Su. Su Yu was embarrassed. Let's not address each other. If there's anything in the future, just say it. Try not to address each other. The relationship between them was really messy. Suddenly, Su Yu noticed Elder One and the other 2. Deal with the 3 of them as soon as possible. Xie Xiaoye noticed the pale faces of Elder One and the other 2. Her gaze turned cold. She had waited for this day for a long time. The 4 of them had indeed contributed to the Xiaoye pirates, but the negative impact was also very bad. Now that someone could replace them, it couldn't be better. Men, send the 3 Elder One away from the Pirate Alliance. Xie Xiaoye did not choose to kill them. Although they had been hated by Xie Xiaoye for a long time, they had contributed greatly to the Xiaoye pirates. Therefore, she only banished them, not killed them. A few pirates immediately came forward and escorted them away. They had just left when the pirates who had received the news cheered and celebrated. Some even set off firecrackers. It was obvious that they had been infuriated by the 4 Elder One all these years. After dealing with Elder One, Su Yu thought of his own maid, Xue Mengfeiyu. It was not a good idea to have her by his side all the time. Xue Mengfeiyu, it's best to exchange her as soon as possible. As you said before, the Heavenly Legacy Cave is about to appear. It's better not to complicate matters at this critical juncture. Xie Xiaoye had a faint smile. You really don't plan to take a bite? According to my observation, she should still be a virgin. Su Yu laughed softly. Even if she is a hostage, taking her chastity is not something I should do. After hearing that, Xie Xiaoye and Meng Qir looked at Su Yu strangely. Especially Xie Xiaoye. She had seen Xue Meng Feiyu's unparalleled beauty with her own eyes. She had thought that Su Yu was just saying it. She did not expect that after keeping Xue Meng Feiyu by his side for so long, Su Yu really did not do anything. His temperament alone was enough to make Xie Xiaoye look at him in a different light. As for Meng Qir, she had never seen Xue Meng Feiyu before. She asked meaningfully, "Is she beautiful?" Xie Xiaoye nodded deeply. "She is one of the most beautiful women in the 7 unique civilizations. The successors of the 2 families are fighting over her." Chapter 22-26. Seeing that the topic was getting further and further away, Su Yu said, "Please arrange for this woman to be returned as soon as possible." "All right," Xie Xiaoye agreed. Meanwhile, outside the Pirate Alliance, a lone boat descended from a pirate warship. On the warship stood another deputy leader of the Xiaoye pirates, Tai Shou. He put on a fake smile and cupped his fists at the 3 elders. "I'll send you 3 off here. Have a safe journey." After saying that, he turned the giant warship around while laughing. The 3 elder ones sat on the boat and floated towards the endless void. The one-eyed elder was disappointed. Everything had happened too quickly and violently. It was like a dream. Before yesterday, they were extraordinary figures who could call the shots in the Xiaoye pirate. They were top-notch almighties who could rival the leader. But now they were chased away like 3 stray dogs. The change was so drastic and fast that it was hard to accept. "I can't accept this." One of the elders clenched his fist. "We've done so much for the Xiaoye pirates, and we're chased away just like that?" They had never thought about how they had used their identities to act like tyrants for so many years, and how much they had benefited from it. Not to mention anything else, just the many treasures in that mountain alone were enough for them to stuff their own pocket. Now that they were chased away, they had to put on an aggrieved expression. The one-eyed elder was about to say something, but suddenly, a cold voice was heard clearly by the 3 of them. "Which pirate group do you belong to?" The 3 of them looked up and saw an ordinary horse galloping through the air. On the back of the horse sat a woman in plain white clothes. She was the heartless iron constable who had come to rescue Xue Meng Feiyu. "Who are you?" The 3 elders had good eyesight. Putting aside the fact that a woman had dared to barge into the vicinity of the Pirate Alliance for no reason, just the fact that the horse she was riding could step on the void and remain unscathed showed how extraordinary it was. "Answer me," the heartless iron constable calmly said, ignoring their question. Without the protection of the Xiaoye pirates, the 3 elders were much more obedient. They immediately said, "The Xiaoye pirates." The heartless iron constable nodded. "You're lucky." She was looking for the Xiaoye pirate. Unfortunately, she met 3 of them as soon as she arrived. "Bring me to the Xiaoye pirates and I will spare your lives," Heartless Iron Catcher said. She had heard of Xie Xiaoye's name before. It was said that she was the strongest of the top 10 pirates. She was quite powerful, so unless it was absolutely necessary, it was best not to clash with her head-on. Hearing this, the 3 elders had bitter expressions. "Sir, you're late." The heartless iron constable frowned. After asking carefully, he found out that the 3 of them had been expelled. They couldn't even protect themselves, so how could they bring people in? The heartless iron constable said indifferently, "It doesn't matter. We just need to change the method. You guys are doing this, Xiaoye pirates." Su Yu and the other 2, who were discussing how to deal with Xue Meng Feiyu, suddenly received a report that the 3 elders had returned. Xie Xiaoye glared at the person who came to report. "Do you still need to report to me how to deal with it?" Since they had returned, he would chase them away. However, the 3 elders captured a person from the 6th absolute civilization. She claimed that she came to rescue Xue Meng Feiyu. Xie Xiaoye was surprised. She said thoughtfully, "Bring them here." Before long, the three elders brought over a woman with disheveled clothes and blood seeping from the corners of her mouth. She was obviously injured. There were many wounds on her body from the three elders' attacks. You came from the sixth absolute civilization? Xie Xiaoye took off her veil and found an extremely delicate face beneath it. She wouldn't dare to say that she was the only one in the world, but she wasn't much inferior to Xue Mengfeiyu. The captured woman nodded fearfully. Xie Xiaoye's eyes were filled with suspicion. She suddenly extended her hand and pointed a finger between her brows, searching her soul. Compared to questioning, searching her soul was more reliable. After searching for a while, she discovered that she was Xue Mengfeiyu's personal maid. At least, that was what her memory showed. She is indeed someone from the sixth absolute civilization. She should have come to rescue Xue Mengfeiyu, Xie Xiaoye said indifferently. She didn't care too much. This woman only had the cultivation of a half-step Dao master. Out of loyalty, she had traveled 1,000 miles to come here. She couldn't do anything alone. The three of you. Xie Xiaoye looked at the three elders and sighed in her heart. She said, "Rest for a day and leave tomorrow." The three elders sighed. "We don't have the face to stay. Farewell." After saying that, the three elders left hurriedly. It was as if they would lose their lives if they stayed any longer. Xie Xiaoye thought that the three elders were concerned about their reputation and didn't want to be noticed. But Su Yu frowned slightly. He sensed that something was amiss. Finally, Xie Xiaoye looked at the captured woman. She had an idea and said, "What a coincidence! It just so happens that Xue Mengfeiyu needs to be sent back. This woman can replace her and become your maid. What do you think?" Su Yu looked at the beautiful woman in white before him and shook his head lightly. "I don't think anything of it." Xie Xiaoye patted his shoulder and said, "A pirate should act like a pirate. Who doesn't like women at all?" Su Yu said meaningfully, "I might have accepted other women, but this woman, I advise you to either let her go or kill her. It's best not to keep her on the pirate ship." Hearing that, Xie Xiaoye understood what he was implying. She stared at the woman in white cautiously and said, "What do you think is wrong with her? Is she too pretty?" It was hard to understand why such a beautiful woman would willingly become someone else's maid. No, it doesn't matter whether she's pretty or not. What's important is that her subtle expressions don't match her nervousness and fear. Su Yu's observation was meticulous. A person who harbors fear in her heart doesn't move at all. Indeed, if a nervous person showed fear on their face, their body would show the corresponding symptoms. For example, they would be bewildered or shaken, subconsciously trying to hide the panic in their hearts. It was impossible for them to not move an inch. This was something only someone with a strong, confident, and calm heart could do. Moreover, look at her palms. They are rougher than the rest of her skin. It means that she often holds things with her hands. Su Yu said. Among them, the roughness of her left hand should be caused by something like a rein being worn over a long period of time, while her right hand is caused by holding a sword all year round. I can imagine that she must be riding a horse or a savage beast all year round. Moreover, it should be the same mount. This mount should be her exclusive mount. However, have you searched her memory for the mount that accompanied her all year round? Xie Xiaoye shook her head. There is no such thing as a landline in her memory. She understood what Su Yu was trying to say. This woman's memory must be fake. Then, look at her feet. It seems like she is standing casually, but the tips of her feet are aimed at you, leader. Su Yu's gaze was deep. This is a defensive posture. It is a subconscious action of a person. It shows that she is constantly on guard against you. And a person with fear in her heart should avoid direct or indirect contact with the target of her fear. If she was really afraid of you, the tips of her feet should be moving elsewhere, not aimed at you. Hearing Su Yu's analysis, Xie Xiaoye had a rough idea. She shook her head lightly and said, "It does make sense, but isn't it too hasty? I don't think she is." Suddenly, Xie Xiaoye, who had been suspicious a moment ago, attacked the woman without warning. This attack caught the woman off guard. She was testing whether the woman was really on guard against her, as Su Yu had said. She was also testing the woman's true abilities. However, what surprised Xie Xiaoye was, the woman was caught off guard, and her body was pierced by Xie Xiaoye's palm. She fell unconscious in a pool of blood. Xie Xiaoye asked suspiciously, "Are you sure there is a problem with her identity?" Su Yu shook his head. "I'm not sure. That's why I said, either let her go or kill her. However, my guesses have never been wrong. Ever since he had started cultivating, everything he had guessed had always been correct without exception." Before Xie Xiaoye could say anything, Meng Kuer stroked her chin and looked at the woman. She said thoughtfully, "I feel like I have seen this woman somewhere before?" Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. Could she be someone related to Xia Yan? "I remember now." Meng Kuer suddenly stood up, her eyes filled with shock. "She is the heartless Iron Constable. When I was traveling around the nearby civilizations, I saw a civilization that worshipped her and erected a statue of her." Heartless Iron Constable? Xie Xiaoye was shocked. Who didn't know about the Heartless Iron Constable? They were known as one of the world's most famous constables. In this world, no one who was wanted by them had ever escaped. Xie Xiaoye's heart was filled with murderous intent. To the pirate alliance that roamed the dark regions, the Heartless Iron Constable was their nemesis. If one day, the Heartless Iron Constable was determined to capture them, none of the 10 great pirate leaders would be able to escape. Now, perhaps in order to continue hiding her identity, the woman did not retaliate on purpose and allowed herself to be knocked unconscious. If she did not take this opportunity to kill her, when would she? Xie Xiaoye condensed a sphere in her palm and was about to kill her completely. "Leader, please wait," Su Yu suddenly said. Xie Xiaoye said, "Is there something wrong?" Su Yu was a little embarrassed. "I can kill her, but wouldn't it be a pity to kill such a world-famous and beautiful constable just like that? Instead of wasting it, why not satisfy me once and I'll kill her again? How about that?" Xie Xiaoye was suspicious. "You?" Xue Meng Feiyu was placed in front of him, but Su Yu had not touched her for several days. Why was he suddenly interested in the Heartless Iron Constable? Su Yu laughed and said, "Actually, I hate Xue Meng Feiyu's character and do not want to have anything to do with that kind of woman. But the Heartless Iron Constable is a person that everyone respects. If I could have him, I would be satisfied even if I died." That made sense. However, Su Yu had previously said that even enemies would not be willing to force them and take away their chastity. Now, it seemed like it was just empty words. The image of Su Yu in Xie Xiaoye's heart dimmed a little. After a moment of hesitation, she said, "Fine, I'll leave her to you. But you must kill her and not leave any loose ends." "Definitely." Su Yu looked anxious. He picked her up by the waist and looked left and right. Finally, he came to a battleship that was slightly further away from the main battleship. Seeing that, Xie Xiaoye was both annoyed and amused. "Why are you hiding so far away?" "I won't peek." Su Yu placed the Heartless Iron Constable on the soft grass, then immediately began to remove her clothes in a hurry. Chapter 22-27. Just as Su Yu was about to touch the Heartless Iron Constable's collar, she opened her eyes without warning and reached out to grab Su Yu's wrist. Su Yu reacted quickly, and with a somersault in the air, he jumped away from his original spot and avoided her grasp. "Your reaction is fast." The Heartless Iron Constable sat up and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Her eyes were calm and sharp as she sized Su Yu up. "You flatter me," Su Yu said calmly. The Heartless Iron Constable took a light breath and stared at Su Yu as if she wanted to see through him. "Your abilities are top-notch, and your intelligence is like a demon's. Among those of the same age that I have seen, you can be ranked in the top 10. Top 10? You think too highly of me." Shaking her head lightly, the Heartless Iron Constable said, "I never think highly of anyone, Nor do I look down on anyone. You can indeed be ranked in the top 10. She had used a secret technique to secretly change her memory. In the end, she had successfully deceived Xiaoye, but not Su Yu. Her original intention was to pretend to be a hostage and infiltrate the Xiaoye pirates, waiting for an opportunity to rescue Xue Mengfeiyu. Unfortunately, Su Yu was observant and intelligent. He could see through her suspicious identity. This was the first time she had made a mistake since she had been a constable. But there was still a chance. The person in front of her was a deputy captain. He should know the whereabouts of Xue Mengfeiyu and the greedy Wolf King. If she captured him, she could still successfully take them away. So, you plan to capture me now that your plan has failed? Su Yu looked at the heartless iron constable with a lecherous gaze. Are you not afraid of falling into my hands? When that time comes, you will be my woman, the heartless iron constable said calmly, as long as you have the ability. Swish, she grabbed her waist with her right hand and immediately pulled out a soft sword. The sword was as soft as a willow, but it was filled with powerful space energy. Surrender! The heartless iron constable thrust her sword forward. As they were separated by 100 feet, the sword should not have been able to reach him. However, the body of the sword strangely became 100 feet long and pointed at Su Yu's chest. Su Yu's eyelids twitched. He had already sensed it and dodged. Creak! The sword brushed past his shoulder and cut off a piece of his sleeve that was stained with blood. Space law. No, it's the space domain. Su Yu's eyes became slightly grave. This woman might not be proficient in space domain, but within that soft sword, there was a rather solid space domain sealed. The fact that the sword could instantly grow longer was the effect of the space domain. To be able to see the space domain, it seems that you should be somewhat proficient in space divine arts, or even space laws. The heartless iron arrester said indifferently, his wrist shaking. Suddenly, the soft sword, which had missed its target, turned around and headed for Su Yu's back. Space vortex! Su Yu shouted in a low voice, while a space vortex immediately appeared behind him. The tip of the soft sword pierced into the space vortex, but it came out from the space on the right side of Su Yu's arm. At the moment of crisis, he used the law of space to resolve the other party's attack. You are indeed proficient in the law of space, the heartless iron catcher said. Then, with a violent shake of his wrist, the soft sword immediately divided into 9 small soft swords. They surrounded Su Yu from all directions, leaving him with no way out. These small swords also contained the space realm. If Su Yu was stabbed by them, even his heavenly dragon Taoist body might not be able to withstand it. Space folding. What Su Yu folded wasn't his own body, but the surrounding space. However, the surrounding space was like layers of paper. Apart from Su Yu, everything around him was distorted. The positions of the 9 soft swords that attacked him were immediately disrupted. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Su Yu used the space transportation and teleported out from a position where there was a flaw. Ding! Just as he was about to leave, the tips of the 9 soft swords touched together, making a crisp sound. If Su Yu had been 1 step slower, the tips of the 9 swords would have pierced into Su Yu's body. The heartless iron catcher's expression was calm. His attack had failed, so he held the sword with both hands. The entire body of the sword was suddenly fragmented, turning into countless densely packed space scales. They were as small as fish scales, but the difference was that each piece contained the space realm. The scales were like impenetrable raindrops, sprinkling all over the sky. Su Yu had nowhere to hide. His eyes turned cold, and the royal dragon's sword appeared in his palm. With his feet as the center, his body spun on the spot, and the royal dragon's sword in his hand also drew an elegant arc in the air. The arc was like a flash of lightning, accompanied by bursts of dragon roars. Large pieces of scales, like white snow, were frantically rolled back. The heartless iron catcher pinched a finger with her left hand, and a huge black tortoise appeared under her feet. The black tortoise poked its head out, and a pair of indifferent eyes gently looked at the sweeping arc. It stood up unhurriedly. It used its thick and broad shell to block the scales and the arcs that were coming at it. What slightly surprised Suyu was that the black tortoise was unknown, and its tortoise shell was terrifyingly hard. The scales were mounted on the tortoise shell, and the space realm inside was completely ineffective. This was the space realm. As a realm evolved from the 8 great rules, the power of such a realm was far stronger than ordinary realms. Even Suyu's sky dragon body might not be able to withstand the space realm. However, this unknown tortoise could do it. How could Suyu not be surprised? Puff, puff, puff. The black tortoise blocked all the densely packed scales and arcs, then slowly lay on the ground, motionless. The heartless iron catcher said lightly, "You are indeed very strong. In terms of strength alone, you can be ranked in the top 100 of the peers I have met." She slowly put down the soft sword, and a golden tortoise appeared on her small, fair palm. It was not a tortoise, but a tortoise-shaped furnace. In the furnace, an inextinguishable fire was burning. As soon as this thing appeared, Suyu suddenly felt a powerful and unparalleled crisis. All the hair on his body stood up involuntarily. The bones all over his body trembled slightly again, as if they were about to be melted by the furnace fire. What shocked Suyu even more was that the divine 9-dragon cauldron in his body had a slight movement, letting out a few dragon roars. It was as if he had encountered something familiar. The last time the divine 9-dragon cauldron moved was in the ancient dream forbidden lands of the demon realm. In the face of the human ancestor's life cauldron, the divine 9-dragon cauldron had once cheered. This was the second time, although it was very weak. It could not be underestimated. That golden tortoise was definitely not an ordinary thing. "I have to finish this quickly, so I can only use this thing," the heartless iron catcher said calmly. She had been handling cases for decades and had never failed. Even when facing the master of a 7-star civilization, she could still injure him. Therefore, it looked like this golden tortoise-shaped furnace. The desolate suppressing black tortoise furnace, the heartless iron catcher said softly. With a flick of her hand, the golden tortoise turned into a living creature and pounced on Suyu. Its size was obviously very small, but in Suyu's field of vision, the shadow on its abdomen was almost like the sky, boundless and endless. No matter which direction Suyu dodged in, he could not avoid it. His heart trembled. What was this thing? It did not look like a fairy embryo of a Taoist artifact, let alone a Taoist artifact. He immediately used Xiao Dai's perspective, and as soon as he saw it, he gasped. Chapter 22-28. The color of this golden tortoise was actually dark purple. Moreover, within the dark purple, there were hints of black. It should be known that the color of the Tao artifacts, in Xiao Dai's eyes, was only light blue. Only the top Tao artifacts would be dark blue. However, the golden tortoise in front of him had not only surpassed the blue category, but had reached a dark purple, with hints of black. Its level was simply unimaginable. Suyu even suspected that it was an existence of the same level as the divine 9-dragon cauldron. Sensing the extreme danger, Suyu no longer held back. Time and space freeze. His eyes suddenly shot out 2 intersecting colors, weaving into a giant hand. The giant hand suddenly grasped the time and space within a radius of billions of miles. All of a sudden, time and space fell into a state of stagnation. Apart from a few powerful pathmasters, such as Xie Xiaoye, who vaguely sensed the drastic change in time and space, everyone else was frozen in place. As for the heartless iron catcher in front of him, the golden tortoise ignored it, forcibly crushing the giant hand condensed from the law of time and space, and pressing down with a loud rumble. Suyu's heart skipped a beat. He put away the royal dragon sword and took out the pitch-black sinful sword. Zhaoxi. Without hesitation, he launched a powerful attack at the frozen heartless iron catcher. All of a sudden, the heavens and the earth darkened. A smear of darkness and light coexisted at the highest point of the world. Where the two intersected, a simple and unadorned sword energy was born, casually pointing at the heartless iron catcher. This was a brand new form after he comprehended the sword of Zhaoxi. Its power was even greater than before. This sword should have wiped out the heartless iron catcher on the spot. However, because of the space domain, the soft sword at her waist trembled slightly, shattering the time and space that had sealed the heartless iron catcher. The heartless iron catcher woke up in time to witness the terrifying sword right in front of her. Her expression, which had always been calm, finally changed. "Come back!" She immediately waved her hand, and the golden tortoise that was about to pounce on Su Yu immediately appeared in front of her. The golden tortoise turned into the strange black tortoise just now, standing on its hind legs to block Zhaoxi. Ding! A crisp sound rang out. The sinful sword cut 3 inches into the black tortoise's shell and could not go any further. The black tortoise felt the pain and was the first to turn. To prevent the sinful sword from being swept away, Su Yu immediately pulled it out and used the morning and evening sword move once again. The heartless iron constable's eyes flickered with fear. She grabbed the black tortoise and shouted, "Gold and silver horses!" Cluck, with a majestic hiss, a spatial crack suddenly appeared between the two of them. A group of seemingly ordinary horses galloped out. The heartless iron catcher took advantage of the situation and jumped on it. Then, the gold and silver horse leaped and jumped into the void. Su Yu thought for a moment. Not only did he not give chase, but he also heaved a sigh of relief. He's finally been let go. Su Yu had heard many stories about the heartless iron hunters in the Pirate Alliance. It was rumored that she was a legendary woman whose goal was to create light. Su Yu couldn't help but gasp in amazement after learning about its many legendary stories. He even felt a little ashamed of his own inferiority. He felt that there was kindness in his heart, and sometimes he would act chivalrously. However, he had never thought of protecting the world and destroying evil as his duty. At least, in terms of ideals, Su Yu wasn't as noble as the heartless iron hunter. Moreover, the heartless iron hunter was a woman of her word. Over the years, she had kept her promise. Su Yu had seen the criminals she had hired to capture. Any one of them was a bloody criminal who would make one's scalp go numb. Even if Su Yu was present, he would probably get rid of them. Su Yu wasn't a noble and selfless person, but he admired and liked people with noble ideals. Therefore, when he found out that this woman was the world-famous heartless iron hunter, he had the heart to let her live. Just now, he had stopped Xie Xiaoye from killing her. However, Su Yu was now a spy. If he openly let the heartless iron hunter go, wouldn't everyone suspect his identity as a spy? Therefore, Su Yu pretended to be a man who lusted after beauty and wanted to be rude to the heartless iron hunter. He even deliberately brought her to the warship at the edge so that the heartless iron hunter could escape. In this way, the heartless iron hunter wouldn't have thought that a lecherous person like Su Yu was actually trying to save her. She would never have guessed that he was a spy. As for the big fight that followed, it was beyond Su Yu's expectations. Su Yu knew that the heartless iron hunter hadn't fainted. But she was so powerful that Su Yu couldn't control her. If he didn't have some skills, he might have been captured by the heartless iron hunter. Not only had he failed to save her, but he had also been captured. Just the thought of that scene made Su Yu's stomach hurt. Luckily, after some twists and turns, he finally managed to let the heartless iron hunter go. Swish, 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 Xie Xiaoye and Meng Qir, who had felt the ripples of the battle, rushed over. Looking at the slightly battered Su Yu, the two women's gazes sharpened. "Where's the heartless iron hunter?" Xie Xiaoye asked with narrowed eyes, her heart sinking. Su Yu said in shame. She pretended to be unconscious. "Before I could start, she took the opportunity to escape." Xie Xiaoye gently sniffed the ripples of the battle nearby and said, "Then what are the traces of battle here?" Xie Xiaoye knew about that terrifying tortoise. But who did the chaotic time and space and the powerful sword energy belong to? It seems that one of the heartless Iron Hunter's old enemies suddenly appeared and launched a sneak attack. Xie Xiaoya frowned. Such a coincidence? The heartless Iron Hunter was just about to kill Su Yu, and that old enemy appeared? There was no such coincidence in this world. However, the urgent matter was not to investigate the cause, but to deal with it. Deputy Leader Su, return to your mansion immediately and protect Xuemeng Feiyu. Don't let her be captured, Xie Xiaoya said. The heartless Iron Hunter's target was most likely this woman. All right. Su Yu immediately returned to the mansion. Meng Qir's eyes flashed. Father, I'll go with you. Su Yu naturally would not object. With the powerful Meng Qir, it would be much easier to deal with the heartless Iron Hunter if he really appeared. The two returned to the mansion, and Su Yu set up a spell outside. The heartless Iron Hunter's gold and silver horses were said to be able to travel through space at any time. If it suddenly appeared, it would be impossible to guard against it. Therefore, Su Yu set up a layer of spell. Once there was a living creature traveling through space nearby, the spell would immediately sense it. Father, I'll go watch over that little girl. All right. Meng Qir's eyes flashed mysteriously as she went to Su Yu's bedroom. In the room, Xuemeng Feiyu was earnestly making the bed, not daring to slack off. Hearing movement behind her, she immediately turned around, lowered her head and said, Mr. Su. You should call me Mississippi. Hearing that it was a woman's voice, Xuemeng Feiyu curiously raised her head and saw a beautiful woman in white. You are?